A warm sunset glows over a quiet alleyway where two figures rest near a brick apartment building. A young girl with brown braids sits patiently on an outdoor unit, clutching a sweet lollipop. Munching on her treat, the child wonders if eating quickly will bring her mother home much sooner. Shadows lengthen as the girl grows anxious, noticing her mother has still not returned to her side. Her face lights up with pure joy as she leaps up to greet a long-awaited arrival. Carrying heavy bags, the brown-haired mother runs toward her child just as a blinding light suddenly approaches. A sudden impact echoes as the young girl stares in frozen horror at the unfolding tragedy before her. Years later, the grown woman recalls winning the lottery and finally opening her very own specialty shop. She envisioned a perfect candy shop, a place built entirely out of her lifelong dreams and love. The interior is a pastel wonderland, featuring adorable uniforms and a whimsical fairy tale design for its customers. Wearing a frilly yellow dress, she celebrates her hard-earned success while holding a basket of colorful sweets. Looking out at the street, she remains optimistic that her extensive pre-opening promotions will ensure a successful launch. Positive social media reviews flood in, making her feel nervous yet hopeful about the grand opening ahead. Opening her shop door, she is stunned to see a horse-drawn carriage and people in historical attire. Two women in elegant, old-fashioned gowns pause in the street, looking back at her with surprised expressions. From the doorway of her shop named Wonderland, the blue-haired woman peers out at the unfamiliar world. A sudden, heavy thud sounds as the bewildered shopkeeper wonders where this strange cosplay group came from. Surveying the picturesque street, she wonders if she has somehow wandered onto a high-budget historical movie set. The town is sprawling and grand, filled with architecture far too elaborate for her modest city neighborhood. Her heart sinks in panic as she notices her long hair has inexplicably changed to a bright blue. Back inside, she clutches her face and takes deep breaths, desperately trying to remain calm amidst the chaos. Confusion grows as she discovers the shop door is stuck, despite the sign clearly indicating it is open. With a sudden, bright flash, she throws the door open and forces a cheerful smile for the public. Two ladies in ruffled dresses approach, curious about the colorful shopkeeper standing at the entrance. She graciously offers the visitors colorful lollipops, inviting them to enjoy a special treat on the house. Inside the vibrant shop, the noblewomen begin to sample the selection while she encourages them to browse. The pink-haired woman is visibly delighted, exclaiming over the incredible sweetness of the unique candy. A basket of glittering tropical fruit candies is presented, promising flavors of pineapple, banana, and citrus. With a beaming smile, the blue-haired woman presents her wares, eager to impress her very first customers. The customers are absolutely enchanted, noting that the treats even smell exactly like their favorite real fruits. She examines a piece of her specialty gem candy, its translucent facets catching the light beautifully. A colorful assortment of gem-like candies sparkles, looking more like precious jewels than simple sugar treats. As night falls, a soft tinkle sounds while she bids her satisfied customers a warm farewell. Overwhelmed by emotion, she weeps tears of joy after successfully completing her very first official sale. Stunned by the heavy, unfamiliar currency, she bites a coin to confirm if it is actually real gold. Panic sets in as she realizes she let the customers decide the price for her unknown currency. Looking through the window, she contemplates the impossible reality of her bizarre and confusing new situation. The truth finally dawns on her as she realizes she has woken up as a side character in a novel. A panoramic view of the moonlit city reveals the vast world she must now navigate overnight. She runs through the dark streets and stops behind a man reading a newspaper under a streetlight. Hurrying to his side, she frantically asks him where she is and what year it currently is. The man in the trench coat remains silent for a long moment, his face cast in deep shadow. He calmly identifies the location as the Medell Empire in 1786, offering his newspaper for her to check. A quick rustle sounds as she takes the paper, realizing the name of the empire sounds strangely familiar. Looking at the page, she realizes with a jolt that these events are from her favorite novel's prologue. Her companion looks on in disbelief as she processes the insane reality of being inside a story. Hearts float around her as she erupts in joy, thrilled by the realization of where she truly is. The man watches with a confused smile while she laughs, confident her shop will thrive in this world. She cheers with her arms raised high, declaring that her exciting new life begins at this very moment. Beneath the leaves, a carriage rattles along the cobblestone street as the city settles into the night. A newspaper rustles as it reveals headlines about the imperial line of succession. The article questions which prince will become the next crown prince, featuring portraits of two royal candidates. Inside a moving carriage, Julian asks his stern companion for his opinion on the future of the throne. Leaning back comfortably, the man in the trench coat offers a relaxed and knowing smile during the journey. He closes his eyes with a satisfied grin, appearing completely unbothered by the heavy political atmosphere outside. Back at her shop, Dorothy stands before the window, her back turned as she prepares for the day. Clad in her yellow uniform, Dorothy contemplates her next move while clutching a basket of sweet treats. A cheerful chime sounds as she greets her customers, her face lighting up with an inviting, professional smile. She realizes she needs a new name for this world, her pink eye reflecting a moment of sudden clarity. With arms spread wide, she officially welcomes the noblewomen into Dorothy's candy store for a whimsical experience. One visitor is immediately charmed by the colorful interior, while her more reserved companion watches with curious suspicion. The skeptical noblewoman inspects the room, her arms crossed as Dorothy waits patiently in the background for a reaction. Dorothy enthusiastically presents her selection, determined to prove that her sweets are unlike anything they have ever tasted. A shimmering plate of translucent blue candies is presented, sparkling brilliantly like a hoard of raw, precious emeralds. The ladies are taken aback by the intense, delightful aroma wafting from the unique gem-like treats. Dorothy explains the cooling sensation of her mint-infused candy, illustrated by a giant floating confection hovering above them. Offering free samples, Dorothy encourages the skeptical woman to taste the magic for herself as the shop glows. A soft sniff sounds as the noblewoman leans in, her previous doubts beginning to fade into genuine intrigue. A quick crunch sounds as she bites into the candy, her cheeks flushing with sudden, overwhelming sugary delight. Both women erupt in joy, completely won over by the incredible flavor and the shop's magical pastel atmosphere. Seizing the moment, Dorothy announces a 1+1 promotion, sending her first customers into a shopping frenzy. The wavy-haired lady is ecstatic, immediately deciding to purchase a large quantity of the delicious treats to take home. Dorothy hums a happy tune while skillfully wrapping a long candy stick with a decorative golden ribbon. A sparkle shines from the festive bags of candy, symbolizing the success of her very first business transaction. Walking outside, she realizes that the bustling imperial street feels strangely familiar, despite being in a fictional world. Sunset bathes the Wonderland shop in gold as a gentleman in a top hat strolls past the window. She marvels at how well her adorable uniform fits into the romantic and dreamy atmosphere of the city. While strolling, she counts her earnings, satisfied to have made 8 gold coins in just 2 short days. Looking over the town from above, she resolves to learn more about the surrounding shops and their owners. Filled with renewed determination, she vows to work hard to ensure her new life continues to thrive. Dorothy stands proudly in the evening light, a soft blush on her face as she embraces her new identity. A sudden bash sounds as birds take flight, and she cheers happily under the orange-tinted sky. As the sun sets, she walks down the cobblestone street, her heart full of hope for the future. Narrative panels confirm she has landed in the world of her favorite romance fantasy novel, Romantic Lady. The pages of the original story flutter open, revealing the intricate plot she once read for leisure. The book tells of a struggling female lead who rises to nobility and finds love with handsome men. She recalls the story's heavy focus on beautiful romance, which explains the city's incredibly aesthetic and dreamy design. Resting on a bench, she calculates that since she arrived 5 years early, she won't meet the protagonists yet. She laughs while wishing she could see the main characters' beautiful faces, though she only remembers certain plot details. She thinks back to the handsome man she met earlier, recalling how his face was shadowed by the sun. A memory of a piercing emerald eye flashes through her mind, though his hair color remains a mystery. She nods to herself, feeling confident and lucky to have met such a good-looking stranger upon her arrival. Her face pales as she suddenly realizes that the man was Julian, a dangerous underworld guild leader from the story. She recalls the novel's prologue, where Julian was seen reading a newspaper about the Crown Prince at night. Horror strikes as she remembers Julian is an assassin, shown in a bloody vision plunging a dagger into someone. Panic ensues as she sprints through the square, screaming that she needs to cleanse herself from his dark influence. Looking back at the grand architecture, she vows to never cross paths with such a lethal character ever again. A sharp swoosh echoes through the night as a shooting star crosses the moonlit sky above the silent city. A sharp gira sounds as a masked figure in black raises a glistening dagger in the dark palace halls. A sudden gwa and bash echo as the assassin's blade finds its target, ending the peace of the night. A sudden, sharp exclamation sounds as a hooded figure discovers a bed torn apart and covered in feathers. The hooded man realizes Prince Luca is missing and determines he must inform Lord Julian at the palace. Dorothy examines a sparkling gold coin, realizing her candy prices were actually quite high for the local market. She sits on her bed at night, relieved to have gold and plenty of stock to last a while. Now understanding the economy, she walks through her quiet room with a renewed sense of business confidence. Beneath blue flowers and a starry night, Dorothy sits at her desk to plan her next professional steps. She recalls the novel's plot, noting that Julian's assassination attempt fails tonight, causing Prince Luca to vanish. A portrait reveals Prince Luca's striking black hair and red eyes, capturing his elegant but fragile royal aura. An ornamental frame confirms that even the story's female lead found the tragic prince incredibly handsome and charming. She compares the gentle-looking but feared Julian to Prince Luca, deciding the prince was likely the better person. Contemplating the prince's difficult royal life, she assumes their paths will never cross as she manages her shop. She imagines the beautiful main characters of the novel meeting under a glittering moonlit sky in the grand city. Sunlight bathes the picturesque streets of the capital as a new morning begins for the bustling town. Clad in her vibrant yellow uniform, Dorothy waits patiently inside her empty shop for customers to arrive. Looking out the window, she wonders why no one is entering despite the many people passing by. She suspects yesterday's success was beginner's luck and considers advertising in the newspaper to reach new customers. Dorothy stands amidst a flurry of candy icons, deep in thought as she tries to solve her marketing problem. Realization strikes her as she admits to forgetting one of the most fundamental basics of running a successful business. A basket is filled to the brim with colorful lollipops and treats, ready for her promotional efforts. With her basket in hand, Dorothy steps out into the bright morning, determined to attract new visitors. She walks past a grand fountain, her colorful presence standing out against the elegant architecture of the plaza. Passers-by find her outfit strange, but Dorothy remains focused on sharing her unique candies with the public. A soft chime sounds as she enters a flower shop, greeted by the lush scent of blooming roses. The white-haired florist smiles warmly, holding a vibrant green plant as he welcomes the colorful new shopkeeper. He looks surprised when Dorothy presents him with a large, swirling green lollipop as a friendly introductory gift. Dorothy introduces herself and her shop, encouraging the florist to stop by and sample her many other varieties. She explains that she is still adjusting to the country, while the florist listens with a kind expression. Dorothy laughs brightly, her cheerful energy filling the flower shop as she interacts with her new neighbor. The white-haired man offers a gentle, charming smile, clearly delighted by the shopkeeper's sudden and sweet visit. She hands him the candy with a beaming grin, hoping to build a good relationship within the neighborhood. The florist watches her go, a thoughtful and intrigued look crossing his face as he examines the treat. He remains silent for a moment, appearing quite impressed by the girl's bold and friendly personality. Dorothy hugs a bouquet of yellow tulips, thrilled to have made a friend and received a beautiful gift. The white-haired florist smiles to himself, watching the blue-haired girl disappear into the bright morning light. Dorothy continues her journey, introducing herself to other shopkeepers as she explores the area near the plaza. Approaching a crowded pub, she decides the atmosphere is too busy and resolves to return another day. A sudden, violent crash sounds as a man is thrown out of the building onto the hard cobblestone. Onlookers shout for the fight to continue while a man with messy hair sits dazed on the ground. A heavy thud and wham sound as birds scatter, leaving Dorothy staring in wide-eyed shock at the street. The messy-haired man runs away through the square as the rowdy crowd continues to jeer and shout. Dorothy looks down with concern at the injured man lying on the street, her heart filled with worry. Soft morning light illuminates a tidy bedroom where a person rests quietly under a clean white sheet. The man wakes up with his head wrapped in thick bandages, confused about his current location and situation. He reaches up to touch his bandaged face, struggling to remember the events that led him to this room. A light click sounds as Dorothy enters the room with a breakfast tray, noting that her guest is finally awake. She offers a warm smile and a tray of bread and tea, happy to see him recovering well. The man asks if she was the one who saved him as she carefully places the meal down. He tries to eat, but the soup spills from his bandages, causing Dorothy to panic and offer help. The injured man manages to take a sip, his single visible eye reflecting his exhaustion and lingering pain. As he finishes his meal, Dorothy lets out a tired yawn, showing the toll of her long night nursing him. Inside a rustic attic, Mimi checks on the bandaged man while he eats a modest meal in bed. Mimi emphasizes her generosity, reminding him that she sacrificed her only bed for his recovery. Mimi calculates the mounting debt for lodging and medical treatment while the bandaged man looks on skeptically. Leaning in close, Mimi inspects the bandaged man's condition as he sits stoically on the edge of the bed. Mimi strictly advises him to continue applying his ointment for several more days to ensure proper healing. The bandaged man remains silent, his expression unreadable as Mimi places a steadying hand on his chest. Mimi commands his full attention, insisting he listen to her instructions if he truly feels grateful for her help. With a mischievous glint in her eyes, Mimi leans toward the startled man to reveal her ulterior motive. Mimi triumphantly declares that he will start repaying his debt through hard labor, leaving the man utterly shocked. A soft poke sounds as Mimi playfully prods his shoulder, emphasizing that she cannot afford any paid help. Mimi offers a cheerful deal, suggesting he work at the pub until his facial swelling finally subsides. The bandaged man offers a rare, subtle smile, seemingly amused by Mimi's assertive and business-minded nature. Mimi beams with a radiant, satisfied smile, pleased that her plan to secure a new worker has succeeded. A joyful shoom sounds as Mimi excitedly tosses a fresh sheet into the air, celebrating her new arrangement. Maz, the orange-haired pub owner, erupts into hearty laughter, finding the entire situation absolutely hilarious and entertaining. Mimi, now dressed in a vibrant yellow gown, stands beside her new, stoic coworker in his red vest. Mimi encourages the bandaged man to offer a proper apology to Mas for the trouble caused previously. Mimi negotiates with Mas to pay for damages in installments, though the kind owner insists it isn't necessary. Mas recalls a violent memory of Tony's heavy fist landing a blow, explaining how the man got injured. Mimi presents a basket overflowing with colorful sweets and a cute bunny plush, her eyes sparkling with delight. Mimi and Mas share a light-hearted moment, discussing how the items are more than just cute decorations. Amidst a shower of stars, Mimi and Mas celebrate their shared joy over the adorable bunny and wine. A refreshing splash sounds as a wooden bucket is filled to the brim with frothy, golden ale. Mimi asks about the cause of the fight, curious to know the history between the man and Tony. A silhouette reveals the bandaged man, wearing a hat, approaching Tony just before their violent confrontation began. Mimi stares at the bandaged man with intense curiosity, asking what words could have triggered such a beating. The bandaged man coolly explains that he simply called Tony a lackey, showing no regret for his words. Maz howls with laughter, finding it incredible that the man actually used such a provocative term against Tony. Mimi is struck by sudden panic upon hearing about the Lycaon Guild, fearing any connection to the dangerous Julian. Mimi waves a hurried goodbye to Mas, declaring she must return to her own duties immediately. A rhythmic clack sounds as Mimi and the bandaged man walk together across the sunlit cobblestone plaza. The bandaged man remains deep in thought, his gaze distant as he follows Mimi through the city streets. A soft tug sounds as the man's hand reaches out, catching Mimi's yellow sleeve to stop her. They pause near a grand carriage, the atmosphere shifting as the man's sudden action halts their progress. Mimi realizes with a start that the mysterious man has never actually shared his name with her. The bandaged man looks away, his expression hidden as he ponders Mimi's sudden realization about his identity. A dazed wah sounds as the man stands frozen, overwhelmed by Mimi's straightforward and unexpected question. Mimi stands silently, the soft curls of her blue hair catching the light as she waits for him. They stand face to face in the middle of the street, locked in a moment of intense, quiet tension. From a distance, the pair looks like a tiny couple amidst the grandeur of the city's stone architecture. The bandaged man asked Mimi why she was even speaking to a lackey from that particular guild. Mimi meets his gaze with wide eyes, surprised by the intensity of his interest in her past interactions. A bead of sweat rolls down the man's face as his single visible eye reflects deep internal conflict. Rumors about the Lycaon Guildmaster's appearance swirl as the scene focuses on the grand imperial buildings. Mimi is baffled, questioning why he would seek out a man as incredibly dangerous as the Guildmaster. The man shuts down the conversation, refusing to reveal any more details about his mysterious and risky mission. Mimi stares at him, stunned into silence by his sudden wall of secrecy regarding the dangerous guild. With a lighthearted shrug, Mimi decides to drop the subject and continues on her way without prying further. The grand clock tower chimes, reminding Mimi that it is finally time to reapply the man's healing ointment. A firm grip sounds as a hand tightens around a wrist, stopping someone in their tracks once again. Dorothy leads the messy-haired man through the sunny plaza, her face beaming with infectious, light-hearted energy. Sitting together on a park bench, she reaches out to gently inspect the man's bandages in the soft light. She leans in close, explaining the care he needs while he watches her with quiet, focused intensity. A subtle, amused smile touches the man's lips as he feels the girl's genuine concern for his well-being. Dorothy's pink eyes sparkle with sudden interest as she observes the quiet man from a very close distance. Tension fills the air as the man grips his knees, his hands trembling slightly while they sit together. Overwhelmed by her kindness, the messy-haired man hides his face, his composure wavering under her bright, cheerful gaze. Dorothy happily tidies her dress as the man stands nearby, his expression hidden behind the thick white bandages. She hands him a gold coin along with a shopping list, entrusting him with her hard-earned money. The man accepts the task, promising to bring the requested items back to her room without any delay. With a firm wag of her finger, Dorothy tells him she's trusting him and expects him to return. He offers a silent, solemn nod, his single visible eye reflecting a deep sense of loyalty and exhaustion. Satisfied with his response, she gives him a warm, encouraging smile that lights up her entire face. She waves a cheerful goodbye, her long, wavy blue hair flowing behind her as she begins to depart. Walking away into the bright morning, she leaves the bandaged man alone to contemplate her surprising, sweet generosity. The man remains on the bench, staring at the coin and note as he processes the girl's trust. Back at her shop, the white-haired florist, Therian, arrives with a bright smile, ready for a friendly visit. Dorothy enthusiastically welcomes him, offering to recommend the absolute best treats to satisfy his specific sweet tooth. Therian recalls giving treats to local children, noting how quickly they finish other snacks without being fully satisfied. Her eyes lighting up, she assures him that her magical candies are the perfect solution for his problem. Intrigued by her confidence, the gentle florist agrees to try whatever special recommendation she has in mind. A bowl overflows with colorful, fruit-shaped hard candies, shimmering with a delicious, sugary glaze under the lights. They share a joyful laugh while he examines a treat, the shop's atmosphere turning warm and friendly. A successful sale is completed, leaving a bag of candy and several gold coins resting on the counter. A long, tired yawn echoes through the empty shop as evening light bathes the room in golden hues. Dorothy stretches broadly, dreaming of the day her little candy shop becomes the most famous in the city. Looking out the window, she wonders if the bandaged man, whom she called Mimi, will actually return. She recalls his dark, brooding energy, worrying that he might have been harboring some truly dangerous, hidden thoughts. Surrounded by her colorful wares, she feels a sudden pang of loneliness in this unfamiliar, fictional world. She stares blankly into an empty cup, her mind wandering as the silence of the evening sets in. Resting her chin on her hand, Dorothy sinks into quiet introspection, questioning her place in this new story. The shop door opens, and she looks up with a bright, professional smile to greet her newest customer. Her gaze freezes as she catches sight of the visitor, her pink eyes widening in utter, breathless shock. A tall man with vibrant red hair and a luxurious fur cloak strolls into the shop's warm glow. He offers a gentle, charming smile, his golden eyes sparkling with an air of sophisticated and mysterious elegance. As he approaches the counter, Dorothy stands paralyzed, her heart racing at the man's overwhelming and handsome presence. Panic begins to set in as she stares, her expression shifting from admiration to a deep, instinctive fear. The man hums thoughtfully while browsing the candy jars, seemingly unaware of the shopkeeper's sudden, intense distress. A small, knowing smirk plays on his lips, hinting at a much more predatory nature beneath his beauty. He leans in close, causing Dorothy to stammer in confusion as she struggles to maintain her professional composure. Her mind races as she recognizes his face, realizing this beautiful stranger is a truly lethal, high-ranking character. Narrative panels confirm his identity as Julian, the dangerous master of the underground Lycaon Guild from the novel. She recalls his terrifying reputation as a man who can order a prince's assassination with a casual smile. Horror strikes as she remembers Julian's lethal skills, wondering why such a dangerous man has entered her shop. Dorothy forces a stiff, terrified smile, her face turning pale as she realizes the gravity of the situation. Julian notices her sudden change in demeanor and asks if she is all right, his voice dripping with charm. He reaches out to gently touch her hair, a quick swoosh sounding as he makes his unexpected move. Acting on impulse, Dorothy covers her face, pretending to be a flustered girl overwhelmed by his incredible looks. She laughs nervously, claiming she was just dazzled by his beauty, while internally planning a very quick escape. Julian looks down at her with a satisfied expression, clearly enjoying the effect his presence has on the girl. Dorothy stares at Julian, thinking his handsome features are even more striking in the shop's better lighting. Julian offers a gentle, charming smile, his golden eyes radiating an air of calm and mysterious elegance. A golden-framed portrait reveals the noble Julian's striking profile, emphasizing his high-ranking and potentially dangerous status. Warm evening sunlight floods the shop as Julian asks if there is a specific treat he should consider. He leans back thoughtfully while Dorothy watches him, her nerves still buzzing from his overwhelming presence. Julian leans in with a smirk, playfully asking Dorothy to recommend the flavors she personally enjoys most. Flustered, she presents a plate of candy while the red-haired man continues his charming, albeit terrifying, advances. Dorothy laughs nervously, internally pleading for him to save his flirting for the story's actual heroine instead. Sweating under the pressure, she realizes she is completely ill-equipped to handle Julian's intense and predatory charm. The master of Lycaon gracefully brings a golden treat toward his mouth, moving with practiced, aristocratic poise. He asks for her opinion on the selection, while Dorothy presents a tray brimming with vibrant, colorful sweets. Julian watches her with a knowing, subtle smirk, clearly enjoying the visible distress his visit is causing. Thinking he is merely playing a flirtatious game, Dorothy maintains her bright, forced smile to survive the encounter. Plip-plop. Colorful candies tumble into a brown paper bag as she quickly packages his purchase to hasten his exit. With a desperate shove, she pushes Julian and his candy out of the shop to ensure her own safety. Dorothy leans against the closed door and lets out a heavy, relieved sigh, glad the dangerous man is gone. She mutters about avoiding troublesome customers, though a small part of her wonders if she was too direct. Visualizing herself being decapitated by a casual Julian, she decides her flustered, girlish act was the right move. A sudden thud sounds at the door, causing Dorothy to jump in terror, thinking the red-haired man returned. She flings the door open to find Mimi standing there, shouting his name in a mix of surprise and relief. The bandaged man offers a faint, gentle smile, his single visible eye softening as he greets the shopkeeper. Mimi explains he came looking for her after she failed to return to the room with his supplies. Dorothy pulls him inside, whispering that since he is here, he can help her with tomorrow's prep work. Standing side by side in matching animal print aprons and holding brooms, the pair looks ready to tackle the chores. Mimi looks grumpy and out of place in his frilly apron, lamenting that he should have just stayed put. He works tirelessly, cleaning the floors and hauling heavy sacks, while Dorothy supervises his clumsy but powerful efforts. Dorothy notes that while he possesses incredible strength, his cleaning skills definitely lack a certain necessary finesse. Her eyes widen as she observes his hands, suddenly suspecting that Mimi might actually be a trained swordsman. She playfully asks if he was a knight in training, though Mimi remains focused on his work with a sullen look. He indignantly claims he only lost his fight on purpose, hinting at a much more capable past. A heavy silence falls between them as they pause their work, the atmosphere in the shop turning strangely intimate. They remain still, the air thick with unspoken thoughts as Mimi's bandaged gaze meets hers in the quiet shop. Dorothy laughs brightly and grabs Mimi's arm, her cheerful energy returning as she leads him to the counter. She expertly pours a stream of molten golden candy onto the table, ready to begin the next batch. Mimi pulls and stretches the pliable candy mass, his raw physical strength making the difficult task look easy. His hands steadily knead a thick roll of vibrant red candy, working the material with surprising concentration. Working in tandem, they stretch a long, sparkling candy rope across the workspace, the sunset light illuminating them. Chop chop. Precise slices fall from the candy rope, revealing intricate flower patterns hidden inside each small red disc. Dorothy holds up a glass jar filled with the finished treats, asking Mimi if the process felt mysterious. Mimi examines the jar with quiet interest, seemingly impressed by the results of their hard work together. Dorothy explains that prep work is essential for tomorrow, her voice soft as they stand together in the shop. She looks up at him with a stunned expression, a slight blush dusting her cheeks during the close interaction. Dorothy panics and shouts in surprise, misinterpreting Mimi's comment as an insult about her being a random clump. Mimi frantically tries to explain himself, his posture tense as he attempts to soothe her sudden outburst. Despite her shock, Dorothy credits her survival instinct and adaptability for keeping the shop running so smoothly. She notices Mimi's impressive arm muscles as he flexes, her heart skipping a beat at his unexpected physicality. Mimi stretches a massive golden sheet of candy with ease, leaving Dorothy in complete awe of his strength. She lets out a delighted, ringing laugh, her eyes sparkling with joy as she claps her hands together. Mimi watches her with a tender, fond expression, his guard dropping as he enjoys her infectious happiness. A loud, rumbling grumble erupts from Mimi's stomach, instantly breaking the romantic mood and surprising them both. Dorothy and Mimi share a joyful laugh, their connection deepening in the lighthearted atmosphere. They sit together on a park bench, the peaceful scene bathed in the warm, golden hues of sunset. A sandwich and a drink wait on a red checkered napkin, a simple meal for their quiet evening. The two enjoy their meal in comfortable silence while the sun dips slower on the horizon. Mimi points toward a distant sight, his attention captured by something far away in the beautiful twilight. He remains calm and thoughtful, holding his sandwich while looking out at the city with a steady gaze. A sudden wet gulp sounds as Dorothy chokes while Mimi casually observes a passing hot air balloon. Dorothy beams with delight, asking Mimi if he finds the charming town as romantic as she does. Mimi looks skeptical, his brow furrowing as he questions the girl's overly optimistic view of their surroundings. Looking at the sky, Dorothy admits she already feels like she never wants to leave this new world. She reflects on her journey, realizing she had been overlooking the simple, important things in her life. A bright, ringing laugh escapes Dorothy as she leans toward Mimi, her joy clear in the sunset light. Mimi chuckles softly at her enthusiasm, his guarded posture relaxing as he enjoys her infectious and happy energy. The conversation shifts as Dorothy wonders aloud if Mimi has ever actually seen the mysterious Prince Luca. She pauses, lost in a moment of quiet reflection, while considering the royal family's secret and complicated history. Close by his side, she continues to ponder the rumors surrounding the prince and his hidden identity. A wanted poster reveals the prince's silhouette, sparking Dorothy's curiosity about the man who rules this land. She leans in close to Mimi, her eyes wide with intrigue as she asks for his personal opinion. Mimi bursts into a fit of sudden, loud laughter, his intense reaction leaving Dorothy completely stunned and confused. He clutches his head while laughing, clearly amused by her question about the supposedly special Prince Luca. Dorothy dreams of catching a glimpse of the royal, imagining a grand palace event where he finally appears. Mimi offers a confident smirk, suggesting with a cool tone that a prince isn't truly special at all. Dorothy insists that Luca is destined to shape the country's future and protect her precious candy shop. Narrative panels describe the rivalry between the commoner-born Prince Luca and the noble-born, favored Prince Lowen. Mimi holds up a finger while considering her words, his expression unreadable behind the thick, white bandages. She proudly declares her unwavering support for Luca, convinced he is the true main character of this story. Dorothy nods to herself, thinking that if the plot goes right, her shop will surely remain safe. She feels a sense of quiet power, realizing her casual words might carry more weight than she thought. Looking over the water, she suggests they both pray for the prince and their shared future together. A new morning begins with Dorothy yawning broadly as light floods her cozy attic-style bedroom. Rubbing the sleep from her eyes, she notices with surprise that Mimi is already awake and gone. In the washroom, Mimi stands before the mirror with his bandages loosened, preparing to start the day. The mirror reveals his handsome, unmasked face, a sharp contrast to the bandaged mystery he usually presents. Splash! Cold water hits his face, his expression remaining focused and serious as he wakes himself up. He wipes his face and stares at his reflection, perhaps weighing the burden of his hidden past. His gaze settles on the roll of bandages on the counter, a tool for his daily disguise. Drying his hands, he prepares to re-wrap his face and return to his role as the quiet guest. Wah! Dorothy bursts into the room in a frantic panic, shouting for Mimi to come out immediately. Mimi looks on in utter confusion as the flustered girl explains her desperate and urgent need for the bathroom. He quickly steps aside to let her pass, his posture awkward as she rushes by in her nightgown. A quick, soft pat sounds as Dorothy briefly touches his shoulder while hurrying past him in the hallway. They share a brief, intense stare, the air thick with an unspoken and strangely intimate tension between them. Recovering herself, Dorothy claps her hands and thanks him for looking after her so well during the night. Mimi adjusts his bandages with a faint, sheepish smile, clearly touched by her sincere and kind appreciation. Dorothy reminds him to apply his medicine regularly, her voice full of genuine care for his recovery. She points out a change of clothes she set out for him, continuing her role as a caretaker. A sudden thud sounds as the door closes, leaving Mimi alone in the quiet, sunlit bedroom once again. He turns toward the bed, noticing the neatly folded clothes and the thoughtful care Dorothy has provided. A soft rustle sounds as he touches a heart-print cloth, murmuring about how well she treats him. Mimi's eyes widen in a moment of sharp realization as a powerful, unexpected emotion suddenly grips his heart. Mimi stares in absolute shock as he realizes Dorothy has provided him with a heart-patterned shirt. He holds up the pink garment, the numerous small red hearts mocking his usual serious and guarded demeanor. The scene shifts to the bustling city, where a brown-haired noblewoman eagerly chats with her blonde companion. Dorothy beams brightly at the entrance of her shop, welcoming everyone to her magical and sweet candy store. While her companion laughs heartily, the brown-haired woman looks back with a glare of intense and mounting annoyance. She reflects on the spreading rumors about unique edible perfumes, realizing that word of mouth is quickly making the shop famous. A happy clap sounds as Dorothy celebrates her success, while Mimi lingers awkwardly and embarrassed in the background. A dramatic thud echoes as Mimi steps out wearing the frilly apron over his heart-patterned shirt, looking completely mortified. The noblewoman is instantly smitten by the sight, while her companion watches with a look of pure, disgruntled disbelief. Overwhelmed by the charming atmosphere and the handsome helper, the woman impulsively declares she will buy the entire stock. Dorothy's eyes sparkle with pure greed and joy as she holds up 2 shiny gold coins, celebrating her windfall. Blushing furiously, Mimi gestures to his ridiculous outfit and asks if he can finally change back into normal clothes. Dorothy is caught off guard as Mimi notes how politely she treats him, despite him being her dependent guest. She lets out a warm, ringing laugh, her genuine happiness filling the quiet shop as she looks at him. Dorothy tilts her head and asks if they can consider themselves friends, her expression hopeful and bright. Mimi offers a truly rare and gentle smile, framed by blooming lilies, his guarded heart seemingly beginning to melt. Dorothy stares back at him with a soft blush, her heart skipping a beat at his unexpected and handsome warmth. Time seems to stop as their gazes lock, a deep and unspoken connection forming in the intimate, quiet moment. Dorothy's expression suddenly shifts to one of sheer, wide-eyed terror as a realization begins to dawn on her. A close-up reveals Mimi's striking red eye, a royal trait that confirms the girl's most dangerous and secret suspicions. Trembling and pale, Dorothy can barely whisper the start of his name as she realizes who he truly is. She stands frozen in shock, finally connecting the dots between her guest and the missing legendary Prince Luca. High above the city, the peaceful evening settles over the buildings and the grand central fountain in the square. Lights twinkle from the massive, ornate palace where high society gathers for another evening of luxury and whispered secrets. Inside the ballroom, noblewomen discuss the incredible new candies that allow them to socialize and kiss without any worry. A brown-haired lady in a dark dress shares the treats, explaining how they perfectly solve the problem of post-meal breath. Her friends are instantly intrigued, offering to trade the latest political intel for a taste of the mysterious blue candy. The red-haired woman gestures excitedly as she prepares to spill a secret that could shake the very foundation of the court. They huddle close, whispering about a major scandal involving the Empress and her desperate attempts to cover up the truth. A sudden, heavy silence falls as the Empress herself appears behind them, her cold gaze fixed on the gossiping ladies. The blonde Empress looms over them, her voice icy as she asks if there is juicy gossip she hasn't heard. The brown-haired lady breaks into a cold sweat, her face contorted in panic as she realizes she was caught red-handed. A crisp, quick snap sounds as a servant is summoned to present a covered silver platter to the royal group. The lid is lifted to reveal the sparkling blue mint candies, artfully arranged with fresh leaves on a white plate. The Empress examines a single candy with a thoughtful, calculating look, her sharp mind already weighing its potential significance. Terrified of the royals' reaction, the noblewoman frantically tries to explain the source of the unusual and popular treats. A small, cryptic smile plays on the Empress's lips as she realizes the potential value of this new local shop. The girl eagerly clarifies that the shop recently opened near the town fountain, hoping to redirect the Empress's intense focus. Standing with regal poise, the Empress listens intently, her crossed arms and stern expression hiding her true hidden motives. A grand portrait introduces the two princes of the empire, highlighting the divide between the commoner-born and the noble-born. Narrative text describes Lucas Elride Medell, the beloved first prince and son of the deceased commoner empress. The current empress is shown, a powerful woman with the full backing of the nobility, despite lacking the emperor's love. Lowenrad Elride Medell, the second prince, stands tall in his white uniform, representing the traditional interests of the noble class. The golden crown shines between them, representing the bitter struggle for succession that has divided the entire imperial court. The two brothers are shown in profile, their conflicting strengths and weaknesses setting the stage for a fierce and inevitable clash. Driven by fear, the Empress hired assassins, forcing Prince Luca to flee the palace and vanish into the outside world. An ornate frame announces that years have passed since the prince started his new life far from the royal reach. The story continues, explaining that Luca would eventually meet a heroine who would inspire him to reclaim his lost throne. Dorothy squeezes her eyes shut in a panic, trying to process the impossible situation she has suddenly found herself in. A sudden, loud thud sounds in her mind as she realizes the legendary main character is standing right before her. Dorothy questions Mimi's sudden intelligence after he supposedly struggled to read the blurry newspaper print earlier. Panicked, Dorothy imagines a dark future of kidnapping and forced labor charges for harboring the missing prince. Mimi promises to protect her, but Dorothy remains skeptical of his ability to actually follow through. Dorothy vents her frustration, questioning how she can trust a royal who simply ran away from home. Mimi feels the sting of her harsh words, looking wounded as metaphorical arrows pierce his heart. Exhausted by the revelation, Dorothy lets out a heavy sigh while clutching her chest in frustration. A quick, buzzing vibration sounds as Dorothy walks away, leaving a confused Mimi standing behind her. A foreboding, dark energy swirls around the ominous warning that things will not go as the prince hopes. A sudden chill shivers through the air as Mimi's red eye glows with a dangerous, hidden intensity. The blonde empress smiles coldly, reflecting on how the missing prince is now nothing more than a memory. Sinister voices whisper that removing Prince Lowen is the only way for the first prince to claim the crown. Shrouded in shadow, Mimi looks down somberly, seemingly burdened by the heavy expectations of his royal lineage. Dorothy firmly grabs Mimi's heartprint shirt, her determined expression forcing him to face her head-on. Mimi stares back at her with a quiet, intense focus, the atmosphere between them thick with unspoken emotion. Softening her tone, Dorothy asks Mimi to make a sincere promise instead of offering empty apologies. She clarifies that she values him as her friend Mimi, regardless of his status as Prince Luca. Dorothy smiles to herself, deciding that since she can't kick him out, she'll simply make the best of it. Mimi is visibly taken aback, his eyes widening as her genuine kindness begins to melt his guarded heart. Beaming with joy, Dorothy reaches out her hand, inviting him into a future of shared partnership. Mimi finally lets down his guard, offering a gentle, rare smile that radiates warmth and sincerity. They share a tender moment, holding hands as a blossoming romantic light fills the space between them. A mischievous smirk plays on Dorothy's face as she begins to plot her next business move. Dorothy enthusiastically suggests creating a friendship contract, which secretly looks more like a binding service agreement. Flustered and blushing, Mimi hides his face behind the paper, overwhelmed by her bold and sudden proposal. The contract details absolute immunity for Dorothy, ensuring she won't be held responsible for any insults toward royalty. Mimi points out that signatures alone aren't enough, while Dorothy laughs at her own cleverness. A confident thumbs up from Dorothy signals her satisfaction as she prepares to seal their new arrangement. Mimi agrees with a bright, genuine smile, completely charmed by her energetic and quirky personality. A firm, quick thud sounds as they both press their thumbs to the paper, finalizing their unconventional contract. Mimi diligently carries heavy crates for the shop, while Dorothy screams in terror at a nearby bug. With a calm, reassuring smile, Mimi points out the tiny creature, proving his worth as a protector. Dorothy watches him closely from both behind her cargo, realizing how much he has changed since his arrival. She wonders if he is actually more talented at selling sweets than performing his royal duties. Narrative text explains that Mimi's current personality is a stark contrast to the hero of the original story. A vision of the future reveals a dark, cold Luca, hardened by battle and the weight of his sword. The text describes how constant assassination attempts will eventually turn him into a withdrawn and ruthless man. Dorothy gazes at him with deep empathy, hoping to prevent the tragic future she knows is coming. Mimi stands quietly by the window, his back to the room as he looks out at the world. Covered in blood, the future prince vows that not a single one of his enemies will be spared. He grips his blood-stained sword tightly, his heart consumed by a dark and vengeful resolve. A fierce clash sounds as the future Luca cuts through his enemies with lethal, lightning-fast precision. Driven by grief and rage, he swears that everyone will pay for what they did to her. Returning to the present, Dorothy eyes Mimi suspiciously, wondering if he is simply trying to skip work. Mimi asks with concern if anything happened, his gentle expression a world away from his dark future self. Dorothy looks up in surprise as he explains that he was just looking at a bumblebee. They huddled together by the window, watching the small, weak bee as Dorothy worries for its life. Dorothy looks at him with soft, wide eyes, her heart aching for the struggles he has endured. Mimi notices her sympathetic gaze, reflecting on how she seems to understand the weight of his past. She gently touches his face, her sincere care bringing a faint blush to his surprised expression. Mimi notes the bee is just low on energy, while Dorothy continues to watch him with quiet affection. Mimi asks Dorothy to wait a moment, his brown hair ruffled as they stand outside the shop. A spoon rests over a flickering flame, heating a shimmering golden substance as it begins to bubble. Dorothy and Mimi lean in with wide-eyed excitement, captivated by the magical results of their candy experiment. Through the shop window, the duo watches the preparation process, their faces obscured by the soft light. Mimi gazes upward with a thoughtful expression, the setting sun highlighting the red tips of his dark hair. Dorothy bursts into a joyous laugh, teasing Mimi for making such a fuss over a simple task. Dark thorns entwine over a blood-red backdrop as Mimi reflects on the harsh upbringing of the royal family. Shadowy figures loom in the darkness, representing the ruthless lessons of survival and betrayal Mimi once learned. Mimi offers a faint, gentle smile, his red eyes softening as he contrasts his past with his current life. Dorothy stares back in stunned silence, her pink eyes wide as she processes his heavy words. Blushing deeply, Dorothy brushes a lock of blue hair behind her ear, clearly flustered by the intimate atmosphere. A close-up shows a sticky smudge of golden syrup lingering on the tip of Dorothy's slender finger. Mimi reaches out and gently takes Dorothy's hand, noticing the small mess she left behind. The two share a brief, intense moment of silence, their faces inches apart as the world around them fades. A sudden, aggressive thud sounds as someone begins pounding relentlessly on the closed doors of the shop. Dorothy's romantic mood instantly sours into irritation, while Mimi looks on with a sense of growing unease. With a fierce shout, Dorothy throws the door open, ready to confront whoever dared to disturb her peace. A stern official in a white imperial uniform stands at the door, flanked by two other silent guards. Dorothy looks up at the tall, imposing men, her initial anger replaced by a flicker of uncertainty. Mimi suddenly appears wearing a brown paper bag over his head to hide his royal identity from the soldiers. Still wearing the ridiculous bag, Mimi coolly questions the soldier's lack of manners when approaching a local business. The official explains he is there to deliver an imperial decree, while Mimi maintains his absurd disguise. A hand presents a formal black envelope sealed with a red wax stamp, bearing an invitation from the Empress. Mimi bows low in his paper bag while a horrified Dorothy realizes the magnitude of the royal summons. Back inside, Dorothy sits in a daze, while Mimi stands nearby, his expression unreadable after the soldiers leave. Dorothy explains that the Empress has taken an interest in their candies and wants to meet the creator personally. Clutching the heavy paper, Dorothy feels a wave of exhaustion as she contemplates the dangers of the palace. Mimi taps his chin thoughtfully, his sharp eyes narrowed as he weighs the risks of Dorothy going alone. Dorothy sighs, acknowledging that they have no choice but to comply with a direct summons from the throne. Mimi places a steadying hand on her arm, his quiet presence offering comfort amidst her mounting anxiety. Mimi looks down with a somber, protective gaze, clearly worried about Dorothy entering the Empress's lion's den. Flashing a bright, determined smile, Dorothy promises Mimi that she will return safely from the Imperial Palace. Dorothy insists on a pinky promise, making Mimi swear to look after the shop while she is away. They lock pinkies against a backdrop of blooming flowers, sealing their unconventional contract with a silent bond. Mimi asks how much longer they need to hold the pose, feeling a bit awkward despite the sincerity. The two stand back to back as they prepare for the day, Mimi focused on his newfound cleaning duties. Mimi blushes and looks away, touched by Dorothy's unwavering trust in him despite his secret royal past. At the palace, Dorothy sits nervously at a garden tea table while the blonde Empress enjoys her drink. Dorothy wonders if the Empress's cold silence is a deliberate insult directed at her commoner status. The Empress wears a subtle, calculating smile, her sharp eyes observing Dorothy's every move and reaction. Dorothy forces a polite smile and bows her head, thanking the royal for the unexpected invitation. The narrative confirms her identity as the powerful second Empress, a woman known for her cold and ruthless ambition. Dorothy tries to play gam her abilities, acting humble to avoid drawing too much of the Empress's attention. Terror flashes in Dorothy's eyes as she recalls the Empress's history of using assassins to eliminate her rivals. A plate of blue mints sits between them as the Empress demands Dorothy's total cooperation with her plans. The Empress smiles coldly while Dorothy hides a small object behind her back, her heart racing in fear. A portrait reveals Prince Lowen, the Empress's son, surrounded by his favorite scent of lilacs and lavender. Dorothy comments on the beautiful fragrance of the garden, trying to maintain the facade of a peaceful meeting. The Empress promises Dorothy a noble title if her son gives her a goodnight kiss, thanks to the candies. Holding a single blue mint, the Empress nostalgically recalls how her son used to give her treats as a child. A narrative shift occurs, revealing a pivotal memory that changed the Empress's relationship with her son forever. A flashback shows the Empress tucking her young son, Lowen, into his lavish bed with maternal care. As she leans down to give him a goodnight kiss, the brown-haired boy watches her with cold detachment. Shock washes over the Empress, her hand flying to her mouth after her son delivers a heartless remark. Sitting up, young Lowen bluntly tells his mother her breath reeks, wounding her pride with a chilling gaze. A sudden, sharp crack sounds as the Empress's composure shatters under the weight of her son's cruelty. Returning to the present, the Empress looks dejected while a chibi Dorothy watches with a bewildered expression. The Empress confesses her anxiety about Lowen, while Dorothy notes his behavior matches the ruthless character from the novel. A portrait reveals adult Prince Lowen, described as possessing a deceptive, ever-pleasant smile and a gentle demeanor. Narrative text explains Lowen's psychopathic nature, detailing how he lures his enemies into ruin with false promises. With glowing red eyes and a dark, chained backdrop, Lowen is revealed as a secret, cold-blooded villain. Dorothy observes the Empress, realizing even Prince Luca is fooled by his brother's convincing mask of kindness. Reflecting on the story, Dorothy realizes the Empress's desperate ambition for her son is built on tragic lies. The Empress gives Dorothy 1 week to deliver the treats, trusting her talent despite her own inner turmoil. Dorothy offers a bright, determined smile as she accepts the challenge, her pink eyes filled with renewed purpose. From her carriage, Dorothy watches the city go by, pondering the dark and complicated secrets of the royals. She suspects Lowen's childhood insult was a calculated lie designed to distance himself and wound his mother's pride. Adult Lowen is shown as a man obsessed with cleanliness, harboring a deep loathing for any physical contact. A silhouette depicts the child Lowen rejecting his mother's touch, a cold habit that persisted into his adulthood. Dorothy resolves to succeed, relying on her status as the protagonist's friend to provide her with divine immunity. A loud, rhythmic clatter sounds as the carriage wheels turn, signaling Dorothy's return to her regular life. Stepping out of the carriage, Dorothy arrives home with a weary but resolved look on her face. Mimi rushes out with a sudden frantic dash, still wearing the brown paper bag to hide his identity. Peeking through the holes in his disguise, Mimi's glowing red eyes betray his intense and overwhelming concern. Mimi runs toward Dorothy, asking her what happened at the palace with a voice full of frantic worry. He pulls her into a sudden, firm embrace, his relief palpable as he holds her tightly against him.
Dorothy looks up in surprise while Mimi admits he was worried by her lateness, his guard completely down.
Mimi frantically checks on her, asking if she was threatened, while a blossoming romantic light fills the air. Dorothy reassures him with a smile, mentioning the Empress's fancy carriage as proof of the meeting's success. They stand close in the moonlight, Dorothy's hand resting on Mimi's chest as their hearts beat in unison. A close-up reveals Dorothy's internal struggle as she finds herself captivated by Mimi's warmth and protective presence. A quick, awkward puff sounds as they pull apart, both blushing and clearing their throats in sudden embarrassment. Dorothy laughs nervously to break the tension, while Mimi remains flustered by their uncharacteristically intimate moment. The scene pans out to the quiet city at night, the atmosphere peaceful after their emotionally charged reunion. Back in her room, Dorothy sits on her bed, questioning the propriety of sharing a home with Mimi. She sighs, realizing that Mimi has transcended his role as a mere fictional character in her heart. Surrounded by a vision of roses, she recalls the feeling of his warm, broad chest against her own.
Dorothy lets out a giddy, joyous laugh, her heart fluttering as she processes her newfound feelings for him. Mimi calls her name, apologizing for the wait as he approaches from the other side of the room. Dorothy is stunned into silence as Mimi appears shirtless, casually drying his brown hair with a white towel. A spray of vibrant pink roses highlights Dorothy's intense reaction as she struggles to look away from him. Dorothy hides in a bubble bath, her face flushed red as she tries to banish Mimi from her thoughts. A sudden, loud splash sounds as she kicks her legs in the water, completely losing her typical composure. She admits that his appearance is flawless, her inner chibi swooning over his impressive and muscular physique. Peeking over the bubbles, Dorothy decides that he is the perfect, handsome, and surprisingly competent houseguest. A rhythmic, flowing splash sounds as Dorothy stretches in the tub, enjoying the luxury of her quiet evening. She sinks back into the bubbles with wide eyes, wondering how her heart will survive living with Mimi. A blonde woman with long hair presents a fresh bouquet of lavender, signaling the start of a new morning. Dorothy smiles joyfully as she takes the lavender, complimenting the shopkeeper on the quality of her flowers. The shopkeeper asks if the lavender is for candy making, and Dorothy enthusiastically confirms her next business plan. Clutching a vibrant bouquet of fresh lavender, Dorothy prepares to craft a special new batch of floral-infused treats. Shimmering purple candies tumble through the air as Dorothy plans to blend aromatic lavender with refreshing mint flavors. Dorothy beams with gratitude while the blonde flower shopkeeper hands over the fragrant blossoms with a friendly smile. Standing behind Dorothy, Mimi clears his throat with a sudden, soft ahem to get her attention during the transaction. Mimi carries the heavy paper bag of flowers, noting that this exclusive commission won't be available to regular customers. Mimi gently urges Dorothy to get moving, and she follows him with a cheerful, energetic response. The blonde shopkeeper watches them depart, a thoughtful expression crossing her face as she observes their close dynamic. From behind, the shopkeeper wonders if the handsome man with Dorothy is actually one of her humble employees. Dismissing the thought, she decides to stock up on more lavender just in case Dorothy's new business venture succeeds. As they walk through the courtyard, Dorothy suggests that even a simple bandage would be a better disguise for Mimi. Mimi points out a grainy newspaper photo, explaining that only palace regulars could possibly recognize his face now. Dorothy looks up at Mimi with a warm, encouraging smile, her pink eyes glowing with affection and unwavering support. Mimi gazes back at her with a gentle, appreciative look, his red eyes softening in the morning light. Back in the shop, the two wear matching heart-patterned aprons as they prepare to begin their candy-making work together. Dorothy looks toward Mimi with a conflicted gaze, internally questioning the public's perception of his supposed psychopathic nature. Mimi stands tall in his frilly apron, his calm and handsome appearance contrasting with the dark rumors of his past. A close-up reveals Mimi's peaceful, enigmatic smile as he focuses on his tasks in the comfort of Dorothy's shop. Dorothy reaches out to Mimi, who insists he doesn't mind the work, his kind demeanor putting her at ease. Mimi's expression becomes somber as he explains that despite their rivalry, he has no true desire to harm Lowen. A royal portrait shows the blonde empress with a young, dark-haired Lowen, highlighting his inability to defy her will. Dorothy laughs nervously to hide her anxiety, wondering how she could ever tell Mimi the dark truth about his brother. Dorothy leans in close to Mimi, promising to stay by his side and support him through the coming challenges. Mimi breaks into a bright, heart-melting smile, visibly moved by Dorothy's sincere and selfless offer of companionship. As they stand together, Dorothy swoons over Mimi's overwhelming kindness, feeling more determined than ever to protect his future. The scene shifts back to the grand, sunlit palace, where the Empress's high-stakes plan is finally set into motion. Dorothy presents a single lavender mint candy to the blonde Empress, who examines the treat with a skeptical, cold gaze. The Empress's blunt assessment leaves a chibi Dorothy shocked and wounded after she poured so much effort into the recipe. A weary sigh escapes the Empress as she delivers a harsh remark, making Dorothy feel the weight of her cruelty. Dorothy forces a brave smile, hoping that a successful outcome will allow her the chance to meet the Empress again. Standing tall, Dorothy politely declines any interest in noble titles, while the Empress offers gold coins in exchange for success. Dorothy's eyes sparkle with genuine passion as she explains her true motivation lies in her craft, not in wealth. The Empress watches her with a calculating, narrow-eyed look, clearly intrigued by Dorothy's lack of greed and bold honesty. A subtle, mysterious smile touches the Empress's lips as she begins to see Dorothy as more than just a commoner. At night, the Empress stands before a massive, ornate door in the palace, preparing for a difficult emotional encounter. A weary, heavy sigh sounds as the Empress pauses to gather her composure before entering her son's private chambers. A sudden, sharp click sounds as the door opens, and the Empress announces her arrival to the dark-haired Prince Lowen. Prince Lowen stands by the moonlit window, his back turned as he acknowledges his mother's presence with cold detachment. Lowen turns slightly, his red eyes unreadable as he questions why his busy mother has come to see him again. They share a formal embrace, the Empress looking hopeful while Lowen maintains a stiff and distant posture. Lowen holds his mother close, his voice smooth and deceptive as he claims to understand her feelings completely. A close-up of Lowen's intense, glowing red eyes reveals the cold, calculating mind hidden behind his pleasant and polite facade. Lowen notes the absence of her usual perfume, causing the Empress to realize he is finally showing curiosity toward her. Overjoyed by this rare sign of affection, the Empress laughs with genuine delight, believing her efforts are finally working. They stand together in the blue moonlight,
the Empress looking radiant and happy while Lowen watches her with a mask. Lowen offers a wide, charming smile that reaches his eyes, playing the role of the perfect son with chilling precision. From outside the palace window, their silhouettes remain locked in a hug, a picture of familial peace built on lies. The Empress bids Lowen a gentle goodnight as she exits the room, leaving her son alone in the silent darkness. Sitting on the edge of his bed, Lowen holds the small blue mint Dorothy crafted, staring at it with intense focus. A dark, satisfied smirk stretches across Lowen's face as he realizes the candy might actually serve his own twisted purposes.
Back at the shop, Mimi relaxes in a steaming bath, his expression thoughtful as he reflects on his life with Dorothy.
Mimi relaxes in a steaming bath, his expression thoughtful as he reflects on his life with Dorothy.
Steam fills the room as Mimi expresses his hope that the candy doesn't suit the Empress's taste. The scene shifts to a grand, sunlit palace ballroom, bustling with elegantly dressed nobles at a formal banquet.
At a decorated table, a brown-haired woman notes the blonde Empress's unusually good mood during the gathering. The Empress dismisses the compliment with a modest chuckle, sitting beside the red-eyed woman in the maroon dress. With a peaceful smile, the Empress attributes her joy to the pleasant weather and the tranquility of the empire. The Empress enjoys the atmosphere, satisfied that she has everything she could ever desire in this moment. Nearby, the brown-haired Prince Rome dances gracefully with a pink-haired noblewoman, their movements perfectly synchronized. Watching from the table, the women marvel at Rome's impeccable manners and his stunning performance on the dance floor. The Empress thinks that the ladies are finally beginning to prefer Rome over the absent Prince Luke. Despite her earlier worries about Rome's shyness, the Empress feels a profound sense of relief seeing him socialize. Rome maintains a charming, gentle smile as he holds the pink-haired lady close under the bright ballroom lights. The pink-haired noblewoman blushes and beams with genuine happiness, clearly captivated by the prince's attention and kindness. As they dance, a brown-haired lady notices a faint, refreshing scent of mint lingering throughout the opulent venue. Rome continues to play his part with a soft, practiced look, though his true thoughts remain deeply hidden. A white-clad nobleman presents a small blue candy to a pink-haired woman, mimicking the Empress's recent habit. The woman realizes that even here, the mysterious mint candy has become a focal point of noble interest. From a distance, Rome observes the other guests, his expression unreadable as he continues his duty at the ball. A close-up of Rome's mouth reveals a subtle tension, suggesting the weight of the facade he must maintain. Rome believes that as long as the minty scent remains, he can endure the pressures of palace life. Sunlight streams through a tall palace window, casting a warm, golden glow over the quiet and empty hallway. Later, Rome stands in a sun-drenched library, intently reading a red book while leaning against the tall shelves. A sudden, crisp rustle sounds as Rome flips a page while the Empress watches him with a proud smile. Turning his gaze toward her, Rome offers his mother a warm, appreciative look that fills her with affection.
The Empress emphasizes how important it is that the young lady they discussed fully supports their political faction.
As she speaks, Rome reflects that the noblewoman is undeniably the most beautiful among all his potential suitors. Another rustle sounds as Rome reads about the girl's father, plotting to use her to win over the emperor's allies.
The Empress's expression turns somber as she considers the high stakes of their upcoming moves within the court.
Placing a hand on Rome's shoulder, the Empress urges him to find a marriage partner quickly to defeat Luke. A soft, firm squeeze sounds as she insists that more noble support through marriage will make them unstoppable. A close-up of Rome's intense orange eyes reveals a flash of hidden ambition and the burden of his mother's expectations. Rome masks his inner turmoil with a bright, cheerful smile, reassuring his mother of his total cooperation and loyalty. Looking through the window, the Empress notes the difficulty of their situation, despite Rome's optimistic and dutiful front. Rome reminds her that the emperor still favors his runaway brother Mimi, even after all the years of absence. A dark, swirling energy surrounds the Empress as Rome argues that marrying for status alone is ultimately a meaningless gesture. A close-up shows the Empress's mouth set in a firm, determined line as she listens to her son's grim assessment. A golden frame depicts a tragic romantic scene, illustrating the Empress's belief that manipulate public opinion. Rome beams with a joyous, radiant expression, seemingly embracing the role his mother has meticulously crafted for him. Night falls over the palace, and the moonlight casts long, cool blue shadows through the large, arched windows. Prince Lowen sits alone in his dark, moonlit room, staring blankly at the open book resting in his lap. A purple-haired man stands before Lowen, his handsome face illuminated by a soft light as he awaits his master's orders. Lowen's subordinate notes the difficulty of the task, his voice echoing in the quiet, shadow-filled private library. Standing behind Lowen, the purple-haired man asks if he is truly ready to proceed with the plan to deceive the Empress. The purple-haired man promises total loyalty, his expression turning serious as he commits to the dangerous path ahead. A quick metallic clink sounds as the man presents a golden tray holding a few of Dorothy's blue mint candies. Lowen looks at the tray with a cold, detached gaze, while his subordinate stands ready in the dim room. A blue-haired maid stands in the background as the purple-haired man examines a single candy with a thoughtful look. Lowen wonders why such a simple and seemingly pointless order has been given, his red eyes narrowed in suspicion. Lowen offers a sharp, confident smirk, his eyes glowing with the calculated malice of a man who plays everyone. The purple-haired man watches Lowen in silence, his calm and stoic face hiding his true feelings about the prince's dark nature. A grand white house stands tall under the bright sun, marking the start of a new chapter for the pair. Dorothy's face lights up with a radiant, heart-melting smile as she celebrates their brand new and luxurious living arrangement. Mimi considers the new home's convenience to the shop, while Dorothy beams with pride at the Empress's generous gift. Inside, a cozy and beautifully furnished living room awaits, filled with warm golden light and lush green plants. The modern kitchen sparkles with cleanliness, ready for many shared meals and memories in the heart of the home. Overflowing with excitement, Dorothy's eyes transform into hearts as she admires every corner of their brand new palace sanctuary. Mimi offers a gentle, handsome look, his eyes reflecting a rare moment of genuine peace and quiet, heartfelt gratitude. The scene shifts to Mimi's former, cramped attic room, a humble and lonely space he is finally leaving behind. Dorothy proudly announces she has already cleared out his old room, catching a bewildered Mimi completely off his guard. Handing over a heavy coin pouch, Dorothy reveals she even secured a refund for his remaining 6 months of rent. Dorothy playfully claims the best room for herself while leading Mimi through the sun-drenched and spacious halls of their home. Standing by the large windows, Dorothy looks out at the world, her expression soft, hopeful, and deeply thoughtful. Mimi watches her from a distance, noting her presence with a quiet intensity that speaks of their growing, inseparable bond. A vision of the past appears, showing a young Mimi sitting alone at a cold, impossibly long dining table. The weight of isolation is heavy as the young prince eats in silence, surrounded by the palace's hollow, golden grandeur. Back in the present, Mimi stands with Dorothy, the warmth of their shared home erasing his bitter and lonely memories. A sincere and charming smile breaks across Mimi's face, revealing the true joy he feels in his current life. Dorothy stares up at him, her eyes wide with surprise at seeing such a vulnerable and genuinely happy expression. An awkward, quiet silence falls between the two as they stand in their stylized chibi forms, processing the emotional moment. Prepared for chores, Mimi departs with a shopping basket as Dorothy waves him off with a cheerful parting reminder. Walking through the sunny streets, Mimi checks his list, looking every bit the ordinary citizen he truly wishes to be. His steps are light as a sudden, crisp top sounds, his thoughts reflecting how much he enjoys these simple tasks. Mimi looks over the bustling town square, marveling at how a peaceful, ordinary life can feel so profoundly, unexpectedly happy. Surrounded by falling petals, Mimi skips with joy, fully embracing the freedom and tranquility of his new commoner identity. A sudden, sharp stop sounds as Mimi's eyes go wide, his attention captured by something very unexpected on the street. Mimi finds himself standing before a charming flower shop named Alice Flower, its entrance adorned with beautiful, fragrant blossoms. A graceful blonde florist greets him with a warm welcome, her arms filled with a vibrant and colorful bouquet. Mimi's expression turns serious as he approaches the woman, stating that he has an important question to ask her. With his arms crossed, Mimi asks the florist if she knows how to cook, surprising her with the direct inquiry. The blonde woman breaks into a bright, merry laugh, clearly amused by the handsome customer's sudden and strange request. Mimi is struck by a bolt of shock, his face paling as he reacts to the woman's surprising, energetic response. The sun begins to set, casting a warm orange glow over the white brick walls of their new, peaceful home. A simple but hearty meal of fresh bread, apples, and sandwiches rests on the table, awaiting the hungry pair. Dorothy holds a beginner's cookbook, determined to learn how to cook so they can stop relying on plain sandwiches. Looking at the book with a focused gaze, Dorothy considers the challenges of mastering a craft outside of her alchemy. She reflects on her past busy schedule, realizing how much of her life has been spent on quick, simple meals. Mimi arrives with a large bag of groceries, prompting Dorothy to worry that he thinks she is a poor cook. Dorothy happily pats Mimi's shoulder, deciding that having him learn to cook would make her life much easier and fun. Her laughter fills the room as she leans in close, her face beaming with a genuine and carefree delight. Mimi joins in her laughter, his eyes sparkling with a warmth that confirms he is happy to help her. The next morning, a soft, rhythmic chirping sounds as birds gather outside the window, signaling the start of a day. A weary, long yawn sounds as Dorothy makes her way down the often the stairs, still dressed in her lavender nightgown. Dorothy pauses, hearing the distinct sounds of cooking coming from the kitchen, drawing her curious attention toward the noise. She peeks around the corner, surprised that Mimi is already hard at work in the kitchen so early in morning. A sudden, sharp gasp sounds as Dorothy's eye widens in total blushing shock at the sight before her eyes. Mimi stands at the stove shirtless, his muscular back exposed as he wears nothing but a single, simple white apron. Sweating from the heat of the stove, Mimi sighs wearily, finding the task of cooking to be incredibly physically tough. A steady, rhythmic splashing sounds as Mimi stirs a large pot, determined to succeed despite the intense physical strain. Mimi pauses to catch his breath, unaware that a stunned Dorothy is watching his shirtless cooking display from the doorway. Dorothy clears her throat with an awkward, sharp cough, finally making her presence known to the hardworking and shirtless Mimi. Dorothy blushes and sweats, feeling deeply embarrassed as she watches Mimi sigh while laboring over the kitchen stove. Finding the shirtless prince unnecessarily sexy, Dorothy clears her throat with a loud, sharp cough to get his attention. Mimi explains he started cooking immediately after his shower, as Dorothy questions his choice of attire for the task. Peering into the steaming pot, Dorothy prepares to taste the meal, while Mimi looks on with a weary sigh. Mimi suddenly reaches out to check on Dorothy, catching her by surprise with his close and concerned physical proximity. Concerned for her safety, Mimi warns Dorothy to be careful around the heat, asking if she sustained a burn. Dorothy breaks into a merry laugh, amazed that Mimi's first attempt at cooking has produced such a delicious result. At the dining table, Mimi notes that his refined palate is simply accustomed to the high standards of royal cuisine. Fueled by Dorothy's praise, Mimi offers a confident smile and vows to eventually surpass the skill of palace chefs. The pair shares a warm, cheerful meal together, enjoying the cozy domesticity of their brand new kitchen and home. The scene shifts to the pink-fronted Wonderland shop, its windows reflecting the quiet street under the bright sun. Julian stands outside the shop, his expression stoic as he waits to complete his mysterious and uneasy assignment. Crossing his arms, Julian admits that while the request isn't difficult, he cannot shake a persistent sense of dread. Julian reflects on his alliance with Prince Rome, questioning why such an unconventional woman was chosen as crown princess. As Julian critiques her appearance, a polite voice calls out from behind, interrupting his cold and judgmental train of thought. Dorothy appears with a radiant smile, her arms full of purple flowers as she greets her unexpected and lingering customer. Julian is visibly stunned, his eyes widening as he takes in Dorothy's vibrant beauty and cheerful, welcoming presence. A sudden, sharp stop sounds as Dorothy freezes, her expression shifting to alarm upon recognizing the man standing before her. Dorothy stands guarded with her bouquet, watching Julian from a distance as tension fills the air between them. Annoyed by his presence, Dorothy demands to know why Julian has returned, while he coolly asks for extra service.
Julian offers a charming closed-eye smile, masking his true intentions with a facade of polite and calculated friendliness.
A soft, quick rustle sounds as Dorothy shrinks back, clearly bothered by Julian's persistent and intrusive behavior. Julian waits in silence as a sudden, sharp click sounds, heightening the tension within the quiet confines of the shop. Dorothy feels relieved that Luke stayed home, clutching her lavender bouquet while considering how to handle the intrusive Julian. Dorothy looks back with a cautious, uneasy expression, wondering what Julian's next move in their game will be. Julian announces his intention to purchase every single candy in the shop, spreading his arms with an arrogant flourish. Surrounded by colorful candy imagery, Dorothy laughs nervously, skeptical of Julian's sudden and excessive desire to buy everything. Julian looks confused, explaining he thought she had plenty of inventory based on the amount he previously provided. A soft, knowing chuckle escapes Julian as he continues to play his part in their increasingly complicated dynamic. Dorothy's expression darkens as she reflects on the painstaking task of tasting every candy he gave her one by one. Leaning in close, Julian watches Dorothy with a predatory intensity, his gaze fixed on her increasingly wary face. A grim, focused look crosses Dorothy's face as she processes the hidden danger lurking behind Julian's seemingly simple words. A sudden, sharp snap sounds as Julian presents a formal document, catching Dorothy's immediate and startled attention. Dorothy stares down at the kneeling Julian in total shock, her face paling at the gravity of his unexpected gesture. Julian looks up with a pleading, serious gaze, his previous confidence replaced by a moment of apparent and desperate vulnerability. Dorothy argues back with a defiant shout, pointing her finger at Julian as she rejects whatever proposal he is making. A sudden, sharp thud sounds as Dorothy pushes Julian away, shouting for him to leave her sight immediately. Julian notes with a smirk that she is pressing hard against his chest, further provoking a blushing and furious Dorothy. Julian holds out an envelope containing a check, reiterating his claim that he only wishes to buy all her candy. Dorothy crosses her arms and stares at the envelope with suspicion, refusing to believe Julian's simple and innocent explanation. A crisp paper rustle sounds as she opens the envelope, revealing a check for a staggering 2 million credits. Dorothy stares in disbelief at the massive sum, wondering if Julian is truly serious about purchasing her entire stock. A close-up shows Dorothy's mouth set in a firm, resolute line as she makes a final decision regarding Julian. Dorothy thrusts the check back toward Julian, a glowing light emanating from the paper as she rejects his offer. With a cold and piercing glare, Dorothy makes it clear that her integrity cannot be bought by Julian's wealth. Standing before colorful lollipops, Dorothy reflects that her experience in different markets has taught her to sense imminent danger. Dorothy looks away with a dismissive expression, stating she wants nothing more to do with him and demands he leave. A soft, weary sigh sounds as Julian looks down, his face partially obscured by shadows and a look of defeat. Dorothy offers a bright, mocking smile as she faces the crossed-armed and frustrated Julian, feeling completely in control. Confident and triumphant, Dorothy boasts about the royal pardon in her pocket, feeling untouchable despite Julian's lingering presence. Julian boasts about his influential contacts while wearing a cleaning apron and a pink headscarf. Dorothy laughs joyfully as she dismisses Julian's claims, playfully patting the red-haired man on the back. A sudden, sharp thud sounds as Dorothy shoves Julian out of her shop, banning him from returning. A heavy, resonant slam sounds as the shop door shuts, leaving Julian stunned on the cobblestone street. Looking bewildered and dejected, Julian realizes he has been officially kicked out by the blue-haired woman. A quick metallic rattle sounds as Dorothy locks the door, later sinking onto a chair in total frustration. Dorothy vents her anger, recalling Julian's attempt to buy her precious shop with a sketchy envelope of money. Dorothy sits alone by the window, her expression shifting from irritation to a quiet, weary sadness. Curled up on a chair inside the shop, Dorothy hides her face in her knees, feeling completely overwhelmed. Julian approaches Prince Rome in a grand library, checking to see if the prince has found any leads. Standing behind the seated dark-haired man, Julian prepares to deliver his report on the woman he encountered. Prince Rome demands more specific details from Julian, specifically asking to see the woman's portrait immediately. A soft, quick rustle sounds as Prince Rome takes the paper, eager to see the woman's face. The portrait reveals a detailed sketch of Dorothy, capturing her distinct appearance and noble, graceful aura. Julian explains that the woman is named Dorothy and that she previously rejected a noble title from the Empress. Prince Rome gazes at the portrait with a complex expression, noting how unfortunate it is that she lacks a surname. Resting his chin on his hand, the dark-haired prince considers Julian's findings with a silent, calculating gaze. Julian insists he is telling the truth, gesturing to himself while explaining he has no reason to lie. Growing weary of the discussion, Prince Rome raises his hand to signal that Julian has said enough. The prince remains seated in the grand, quiet library, lost in deep thought after Julian's informative visit. A soft, rhythmic bubbling sounds as tea is poured into a delicate cup, signaling a change in atmosphere. Back at home, Dorothy shares tea with the dark-haired Luke, deciding to be honest about Julian's visit. Luke suggests moving the shop altogether, but Dorothy argues that they worked too hard to build their life there. Luke listens intently, his red-rimmed gaze focusing as he considers Dorothy's reluctance to give up their work. Dorothy emphasizes her determination to keep their current house, refusing to let her rivals achieve a victory. The warm evening light fills their cozy home, as Dorothy vows to protect the life they've built together. Luke offers a warm, supportive smile, causing Dorothy to look back with a soft and surprised reaction. Dorothy asks Luke if his pursuit of Julian is what gave him such a troubled, doughy-looking face. Luke sips his tea, reflecting on his mission to find the person who hired an assassin. Dorothy takes a quiet sip of her tea, listening as Luke explains the hidden dangers he has faced. Dorothy urges Luke to focus on his own goals, but he reminds her of their binding contract. Dorothy continues drinking her tea, her mind occupied by the weight of their shared responsibilities and secrets. The pair maintains a serious conversation across the table, their bond deepening through their mutual struggles. Their hands rest close together on the tabletop, emphasizing the growing connection between the two partners. Dorothy breaks into a bright, merry laugh, her previous worries melting away in Luke's comforting presence. Luke watches her with a soft, affectionate gaze, clearly moved by the sight of her genuine happiness. Luke hides a slight blush behind his teacup, moved by Dorothy's radiant smile and infectious laughter. The scene shifts to the pink exterior of the Wonderland shop as night falls over the quiet street. Luke looks toward the shop with a serious expression, noticing something that captures his immediate interest. Dorothy holds up a formal document with an excited, joyful smile, thrilled by its unexpected contents. A sharp, metallic click sounds as Dorothy unlocks the door, while Luke praises her unique candy-making skills. Entering the dark shop, Dorothy ponders if they should continue selling their usual inventory to the public. Jars filled with colorful candies line the shelves, waiting for the shop to open for business again. Luke carries a lantern through the shop, noting that the locals aren't yet accustomed to fine candy. A soft, clear clinking sounds as Luke sets the lantern down, illuminating the quiet room for them. Luke suggests a new marketing method to spread the word about their shop to neighboring towns. Luke considers using newspapers for advertising, though Dorothy worries about using the Empress's name to grab attention.
Dorothy smiles brightly as she listens to Luke's ambitious plans for the shop's future success.
Dorothy enthusiastically agrees with Luke's idea, her eyes sparkling with renewed hope and excitement. Luke offers a confident and charming smile, pleased that his plan has earned Dorothy's approval. Dorothy's eyes widen as she processes the straightforward nature of the man's recent revelation with a quiet gasp. Dorothy reflects on Luke's direct speech, attributing his bluntness to his royal upbringing while he sits opposite her. A soft, shimmering glow fills the room as Dorothy and Luke share a quiet, contemplative moment across the table. Two knights in white uniforms discuss Dorothy's whereabouts, speculating that she is still residing at her royal estate. The scene shifts to the closed Wonderland shop at night, where the knights continue their investigation into Dorothy's activities. The wavy-haired knight reacts with sudden, energetic enthusiasm as they search for more information about the elusive blue-haired woman. A soft, rhythmic chirping sounds as morning light breaks over the street, signaling the start of a new day. The blonde florist stands inside his shop, cradling a large bouquet of purple flowers with a gentle, friendly expression. A warm, cheerful smile lights up the florist's face as he interacts with visitors in his bright, flower-filled shop.
The two knights appear visibly drained and exhausted, leaning against each other while a heavy, somber mood surrounds them. Turning their attention toward the florist, the knights are met with his bright, welcoming smile amidst his floral arrangements. The knights exchange skeptical looks while questioning the florist, their suspicion growing as they probe for details about Dorothy. Moving deeper into the shop, the knights continue their inquiry, asking the florist about Dorothy's family and overseas origins. The blonde florist listens intently, his expression turning serious as he prepares to answer the knights' prying questions. Maintaining a polite facade, the florist offers a bright laugh to ease the tension during his interrogation by the guards. The scene shifts back to the town square as a sudden, sharp gasp sounds, catching the attention of those nearby. Dorothy reacts with wide-eyed shock and excitement while Luke stands nearby, holding a brown paper bag from the market. The florist explains that he had a specific reason for deceiving the knights regarding Dorothy's personal life and relationship. Dorothy and Luke exchange confused glances, struggling to understand the florist's cryptic explanation and the motive behind his lies. Before the knights arrived, a mysterious figure cloaked in brown approached the flower shop under the cover of night. A soft, clear chime sounds as the florist welcomes the strange visitor into his quiet, dimly lit shop. Standing before the florist, the cloaked stranger remains silent as he is asked what kind of flowers he seeks. The florist warns the stranger about the imminent arrival of the knights, asking him to cooperate with a specific story. Under the hood, Julian reveals his striking green eyes, instructing the florist to tell the knights they are newlyweds. A heavy, stunned silence falls over the florist as he processes the stranger's bizarre and unexpected request for deception. Back in the present, the florist recounts his encounter, admitting he couldn't see the cloaked man's face very clearly. Dorothy and Luke listen as the florist describes the stranger's green eyes, calm voice, slender build, and reddish-brown hair. Dorothy concludes with a bright, confident exclamation that the mysterious visitor was undoubtedly Julian, much to Luke's quiet intrigue. Dorothy and Luke walk through the cobblestone streets together, their conversation centered on the mystery surrounding Julian's recent actions. Dorothy ponders Julian's true motives, her expression becoming pensive as she considers why he is resorting to such secrecy. Looking toward the grand buildings of the city, Dorothy wonders why the Empress hasn't contacted her directly instead. Luke watches Dorothy with a serious, focused gaze as she questions the unnecessary sneaking around and gathering of information. Turning to Luke, Dorothy's expression softens as she begins to realize the extent of his concern for her safety. Dorothy clutches her bouquet, admitting she hadn't considered the possibility that her private information was being targeted so aggressively. Graphic digital windows appear as Dorothy compares the situation to illegal data collection, feeling her privacy has been violated. Dorothy offers a warm, grateful smile to Luke, thanking him for his constant vigilance and for worrying about her welfare. Luke looks away with a slight frown, bashfully denying that his concern for her is anything out of the ordinary. A flashback shows Dorothy working tirelessly in the shop while Luke observes her dedication to their candy-making craft. Dorothy works with intense focus, determined to finish her tasks quickly so her loyal customers are not kept waiting. The soft, embarrassed giggle escapes Dorothy as she realizes Luke has noticed every detail of her hardworking nature and dedication. Dorothy raises a finger with a triumphant, joyful expression as gold coins float around her in a celebratory display. Luke follows Dorothy's gaze upward, his hand shielding his eyes as they spot something remarkable in the bright sky. A massive, vibrant rainbow hot air balloon floats majestically over the city, capturing the attention of everyone on the ground. In a playful, chibi style, Dorothy expresses her delight at Luke's creative marketing idea while they both look excited. Dorothy enthusiastically approves of the plan, eager to launch the colorful balloons immediately to promote their candy shop. Inside a cozy tavern, the orange-haired Maz points toward the sky, proudly claiming one of the balloons as her own. A close-up reveals a whimsical candy lollipop shaped like a rabbit holding a frothy mug of golden beer. Maz presents the unique candy to Dorothy across the bar, wishing her luck in finding the owners of the balloons. Dorothy's eyes sparkle with pure, unadulterated joy as she gazes at the creative treat, feeling a surge of happiness. Dorothy's face flushes with frustration as she struggles to pick up a coin, while Luke watches her with calm amusement. Mas laughs heartily while catching gold coins, promising to launch the advertising flyers whenever Dorothy needs his help. Relief washes over Dorothy as she smiles brightly,
expressing her gratitude and confirming she is counting on Ma's assistance.
Standing in the warm glow of the tavern, Moss and Dorothy finalize their agreement with a friendly, professional air. Dorothy claps her hands in delight as she orders a cold drink, her laughter blending with Ma's cheerful spirit. The scene shifts to a high-end restaurant where Dorothy and Luke sit together amidst a lavish spread of food. A sparkling array of breakfast delicacies, including Eggs Benedict and fresh sandwiches, sits ready to be enjoyed on the table.
Luke maintains a quiet, stoic expression while Dorothy raves about the meal, her joy radiating through the elegant dining room.
Dorothy reacts with comical shock, bewildered that a prince would actually worry about the expensive price of their fancy meal. Whimsical treats and colorful lollipops float through the air as Dorothy reflects on the unexpected difficulty of earning a living. Holding her fork with a playful grin, Dorothy finds it hard to believe that Luke is stressing over such mundane concerns. Luke stares in stunned silence as Dorothy leans across the table, offering him a perfectly prepared bite of their meal. With a radiant and encouraging smile, Dorothy holds the fork steady, eager for Luke to taste the delicious food. A glistening piece of meat and melted cheese sits poised on a golden fork, highlighted by a shimmering, appetizing glow. Dorothy playfully feeds Luke across the table, their intimate dining experience drawing them closer together in the quiet restaurant. Luke looks momentarily frozen by the unexpected gesture, his expression softening as he processes the warmth of Dorothy's care. Closing his eyes, Luke finally takes a bite of the offered food, savoring the flavors as the tension begins to fade. A gentle, genuine smile touches Luke's lips, his red-rimmed eyes reflecting a rare moment of peace and quiet contentment. High above the city, vibrant hot air balloons drift through the clear blue sky, releasing a shower of advertising flyers. Hundreds of papers flutter down like snow over the cobblestone streets, carrying the name of Dorothy's Candy Shop to everyone. A little blonde girl in a pink dress tilts her head in curiosity as a stray flyer lands at her feet. Her mother picks up the paper, listening as the excited child begs to visit the shop for her upcoming birthday. The ornate flyer features elegant ribbons and whimsical candy illustrations, clearly announcing the grand opening of the Dorothy Candy Shop. In a nearby park, a man's romantic proposal is comically interrupted as a falling flyer smacks him right in the face. A close-up captures the exact moment the candy shop advertisement makes impact, momentarily blinding the stunned, green-haired young man. The man's companion gasps in surprise, quickly taking the paper to see what could have possibly fallen from the heavens. The couple huddles together to read the flyer, their interest piqued by the mention of a wide variety of treats. A massive crowd gathers in front of the pink-trimmed Wonderland shop, drawn in by the creative and bold marketing campaign. A large, vibrant lollipop with purple and yellow swirls takes center stage, representing the unique offerings of the bustling store. Dorothy showcases her beautifully crafted treats to a curious customer, explaining the care and time that goes into her work. The shop is filled with happy customers as Dorothy handles the rush, her alias, Mimi, becoming a name of renown. Two noblewomen sink into their chairs with sighs of exhaustion, finally able to rest after browsing the popular new shop. Observing her satisfied guests, Dorothy feels a surge of pride in her decision to keep the cozy, original furniture. Standing behind the busy counter with Luke, Dorothy realizes with awe that the flyer idea worked even better than imagined. Piles of silver and gold coins accumulate on the countertop, marking the incredible financial success of their hard day's work. Overjoyed by their success, Dorothy leans into Luke with a merry laugh, while he watches her with a subtle, pleased smile. The pair works in perfect harmony behind the counter, their shared efforts turning the candy shop into a local sensation. Colorful drinks and intricate candies are displayed beautifully, designed to be perfectly paired and recommended to the shop's growing clientele. Dorothy claps her hands together, her eyes sparkling with pure happiness as she envisions a bright future for their business. Bursting with excitement, Dorothy grabs Luke's arm in a friendly hug, startling him with her sudden and infectious burst of energy. Luke's heart races as Dorothy clings to him, her proximity causing a blush to creep up as he quietly stammers. Bottles of fine wine and boxes of star-shaped candies are prepared for a private tasting session later that evening. Back at their home table, Luke and Dorothy sample the new pairings, noting that Moss was the right person to consult. Luke holds up a small piece of candy, considering its flavor profile with a focused and surprisingly discerning imperial palate. The small, translucent treat
catches the light as Luke prepares to offer his final verdict on the new recipe. With a confident smirk, Luke remarks that even his father, the Emperor, would likely enjoy this particular flavor of candy. Dorothy nearly chokes on her own breath, her eyes going wide at the thought of the most powerful man in the world eating her sweets. Pensive for a moment, Dorothy begins to reflect on what she knows about the Emperor from the original story's narrative. A dark and imposing portrait appears, depicting the Emperor as a strict, overwhelming figure whose presence alone could dominate any room. Historical records show a man of terrifying intensity who expanded the empire's borders, described more as a stubborn elder than a tyrant. A soft portrait of the former empress reveals the one person who truly mellowed him, though the current empress views him differently. Dorothy touches her neck, her light blue curls framing a face lost in deep contemplative thought. Considering the Emperor's sweet tooth and dental health, Dorothy muses that a soft cake might be the perfect treat. A sharp eek escapes Dorothy as she is startled by Luke's sudden, towering presence behind her. Reassuring Luke that she only hit herself too hard, a flustered Dorothy tries to regain her composure. Luke firmly takes Dorothy's shoulders, his serious gaze fixed on her as he commands her to follow him. Leading her into the cozy bedroom, Luke guides Dorothy toward the large bed. As the evening light softens, Dorothy reacts with a confused shout as Luke bluntly instructs her to lie down on the mattress. Settling face down on the bed, Dorothy wonders if Luke is planning to soothe her aches with a massage. Luke leans over Dorothy with a gentle but focused expression, preparing to tend to her strained muscles. Resting her chin on the pillow, Dorothy looks up with a mix of curiosity and growing embarrassment. A soft blush colors Dorothy's cheeks as she buries her face into the fabric, overwhelmed by the intimate gesture. Luke's skilled hands work out the tension, leaving Dorothy feeling heavenly and light as if she had wings. Luke explains that his knowledge of muscle relaxation was an essential part of his rigorous swordsmanship training. Dorothy lets out a muffled "Gah" as Luke finds a knot, admitting the pain feels surprisingly good. Luke's intense focus doesn't waver, his red-rimmed eyes tracking every movement as he carefully continues the massage. With a grateful, shimmering gaze, Dorothy eagerly encourages Luke to keep going with his expert care. A long, echoing "Gah" rings out from the quiet house at night, startling the birds outside. The massage complete, Luke sits quietly on the edge of the bed, pleased that Dorothy's tension has faded. An awkward, heavy silence fills the room as Dorothy hides under the covers while Luke remains nearby. Tucked into bed, Dorothy voices her worries about their future, prompting a questioning look from Luke. Luke reminds her of the lie they told, resting his hand on the bed as he mentions their fake marriage. Dorothy adopts a pragmatic merchant mindset, insisting that playing the role of newlyweds will keep them safe. A subtle blush creeps up Luke's neck as he considers Dorothy's words, his expression becoming uncharacteristically soft. In the dark woods, Julian listens as his informants report the shocking news of Dorothy's supposed marriage. Julian touches his lip with a mocking smile, finding the idea of the candy shop owner being a bride amusing. The nervous guards suggest investigating the husband next, unaware they are playing right into Julian's hands. A broad, sinister grin spreads across Julian's face as he revels in the chaos of the misinformation. One informant confidently claims he has seen the husband, unaware of the danger he's inviting. With a dramatic shout, the guard describes the husband as shockingly ugly, much to Julian's silent mockery. The informants detail the husband's supposed facial scars, describing a man far different from the real Luke. Julian chuckles darkly, admitting he was already aware of the monstrous details they are reporting. Maintaining a calm, predatory air, Julian explains why he hadn't yet included a portrait in his reports. 2 heavy pouches of gold coins fall into the informant's hands with a satisfying metallic thud. The greedy guards celebrate their reward, while Julian coldly informs them of another task awaiting them. Julian points into the deep shadows of the forest, promising an even greater bounty for their next job. As the 2 men hurry away into the darkness, Julian watches them go with a chilling, knowing smirk. The informants stop in their tracks, realizing too late that the forest has grown unnaturally dark and silent. A low, guttural growl rumbles from the shadows as 2 glowing yellow eyes fixate on the intruders. A massive, terrifying black panther lunges from the brush, its bared fangs gleaming in the pale moonlight. A horrific, blood-curdling scream echoes through the trees as a spray of deep red stains the night air. Julian stands perfectly still, calmly tending to a small bottle while the gruesome scene unfolds behind him. A knight with maroon hair approaches Julian, questioning the necessity of the brutal executions in the woods. Turning with a cold, sharp gaze, Julian's expression is devoid of any remorse for the lives just lost. Julian dismisses the knight's concerns, noting that the report was complete and the men were no longer useful. With orange eyes glowing like embers, Julian leans close to the knight, his presence radiating pure, unadulterated menace. The knight remains stoic, meeting Julian's intimidating stare as the tension between them reaches a breaking point. Julian walks away into the fog, leaving behind a final cryptic command to remove the creature's collar. A dark, triumphant smile plays on Julian's lips as he disappears into the shadows of the imperial forest. The sun rises over the city's grand architecture, washing the cobblestone streets in a warm, deceptive peace. A steaming bowl of hearty stew is placed before Dorothy, who looks at the meal with wide-eyed surprise. Luke asks what is wrong as he sees Dorothy's distressed face while she reads the morning newspaper. Dorothy expresses concern about a black panther near town, though Luke remains skeptical of its presence near the city. Shocked by the news, Dorothy's face drains of color as she reacts with an exaggerated, fearful cry. A vision of the predator lurking in the dark woods illustrates Luke's grim explanation of its hunting habits. Luke focuses on his meal, eating a roll with calm indifference despite the talk of dangerous beasts. Dorothy's appetite seems to vanish as she pokes at her soup, her mind clearly occupied by the news. The couple looks toward the window as the sound of chirping birds breaks the heavy silence in the room. Chibi-style Dorothy and Luke eat their meal quickly, accompanied by the sounds of hungry chewing. Water splashes as Luke chugs a drink, liquid running down his muscular, bare chest and neck. Dorothy follows suit, taking a long sip from her cup to steady her nerves after the frightening report.
The scene shifts to the bustling shop where elegant ladies browse through the colorful and whimsical displays.
Dorothy bids farewell to a customer as a haughty red-haired noblewoman in a green dress prepares to leave. A young girl in a brown dress stares wistfully through the shop window at the sweet candy displays. The red-haired woman sneers at the little girl, sharply demanding that she bow her head in respect. A close-up reveals the noblewoman's haughty, disgusted expression as she gazes down at the innocent commoner. A man pulls the young girl away from the confrontation as the noblewoman continues her exit. Dorothy stands with hands on her hips, her eyes sparking with protective fury at the noble's behavior. The man defends the noblewoman's status, shouting about her patronage and the candy they just bought. Dorothy seethes as the noblewoman calls her a low-born girl who has become far too arrogant. Protecting the child, Dorothy takes the girl's hands and stands firm against the noblewoman's insults. The red-haired woman reacts with shock, appalled that a commoner would dare to stand up to her. In a fit of rage, the noblewoman hurls the bag of candy back at Dorothy, calling it trash. The noblewoman swings her hand to strike the brat, her face twisted in a cruel, angry sneer. A man wearing a paper bag mask suddenly intervenes, catching the noblewoman's arm to stop the slap. The noblewoman trembles with agitation as her companion quickly ushers her away from the scene. Dorothy shouts after them, mocking the woman for rejecting candy that even the Empress and Prince enjoyed. Together, Dorothy and the little girl mock the retreating noble by playfully sticking their tongues out. The scene shifts to a grand, brightly lit ballroom filled with noble guests enjoying a social gathering. A brown-haired noblewoman makes a similar mocking face, perhaps retelling the story to her social circle. Seated at an ornate table, a group of ladies enjoys wine and conversation during the evening gala. The brown-haired noblewoman laughs heartily, clearly delighted by the events she is discussing with her friends. A server prepares a tray of sweets as a guest snaps their fingers to get their attention. A beautiful assortment of colorful, artisan candies is presented on an elegant, gold-trimmed plate. The noblewoman exclaims that the candy tastes amazing, her eyes bright with genuine culinary delight. At sunset, the little girl and a boy walk through the city square, enjoying their new lollipops. Dorothy hands a large bag of treats to the children's mother, wearing a warm, friendly smile. The two children gleefully share their treats, their faces lit by the golden glow of the sun. Dorothy presents a special bunny-shaped lollipop to the mother, noting it is a unique treat. Luke offers the treat with a soft, genuine smile, his paper bag mask finally removed.
Dorothy leans in to whisper that the candy is for adults only and should be eaten alone.
A chibi scene shows the mother tasting the lollipop as Dorothy and Luke watch her reaction. The mother beams with happiness after trying the treat, her face glowing in the evening light. The woman praises the couple, calling them a beautiful newlywed pair in both looks and heart, wishing them a lifetime of happiness. The mother's laughter rings out as she says her goodbyes. Luke is struck speechless, his face paling as the weight of the newlywed comment sinks in. Dorothy laughs and squishes Luke's cheeks, teasing him about his noble appearance and future success. Cue small birds huddle on a branch as the sun sets over the peaceful city park. Whew! Dorothy breathes a sigh of relief as she and Luke sit together on a park bench. Dorothy leans in toward Luke, her expression soft as they share a quiet, contemplative moment. Luke's black and white portrait is in the paper. Dorothy notes their safety relies on his hidden identity. Dorothy leans close with a curious expression, prompting Luke to continue as the sun begins to set. Luke's face flushes a deep red as he realizes Dorothy is staring, his heart clearly racing. Dorothy bursts into a bright, joyful laugh, her eyes sparkling with amusement at Luke's sudden bashfulness. Overwhelmed by her proximity, Luke remains frozen, his blush deepening until his entire face is crimson. The awkward tension lingers as they sit on the park bench, Luke looking away to hide his embarrassment. As the sky turns a brilliant orange, Dorothy suggests heading home before the darkness fully settles in. While walking, Dorothy worries that the mother and children they met are substituting her candy for real meals. Dorothy grows visibly distressed by the thought, though Luke remains calm and pragmatic by her side. She recalls the image of the thin mother and children in tattered clothes, their hunger plain to see. Luke places a hand to his chin, thoughtfully considering Dorothy's concerns about the family's welfare.
Dorothy's eyes light up with excitement when Luke suggests bringing the family some actual food.
Luke firmly takes Dorothy's hand, a silent tap, marking the moment he pulls her toward their next task. Dorothy gleefully drags Luke through the square, sending a flock of pigeons fluttering into the air. Luke watches Dorothy with a soft, admiring gaze as they hurry toward the marketplace together. With determined strides, Dorothy leads the way through the city, her heart set on helping the needy family. They visit a bakery where the warm scent of fresh bread accompanies a grateful farewell from the shopkeeper. Carrying heavy baskets of supplies, the pair rushes through the cobblestone streets as the sun dips lower. Dorothy spots the mother and child crossing a bridge in the distance, shouting out their location. They duck behind a fence to stay hidden, though Luke questions the necessity of such stealthy tactics. Their journey leads them to a crumbling, isolated wooden shack that serves as the family's meager home. Dorothy looks at the dilapidated structure with sadness, wondering if the children truly live in such conditions. A creak sounds as the mother cautiously peeks through the door, asking who has come to visit. Dorothy greets her with a cheerful smile, identifying them as the owners of the local candy shop. Stepping inside, Dorothy apologizes for the intrusion, while the two children look up from the floor. The mother's jaw drops in utter shock as she is presented with a large bag of steaming, fresh bread. The children's faces light up with pure joy as they reach for the unexpected and delicious meal. Watching the family's happiness, Luke lets out a rare, genuine smile, touched by the simple scene. Outside, a heavy rain begins to fall, forcing them to huddle inside the leaky, drafty shack. The mother tearfully thanks them while holding her children, who finally have full bellies and warm food. Dorothy watches the family with a tender gaze, wondering what more she can do to improve their lives. The rain pours down on the shack while a dark, predatory shape lurks silently in the nearby bushes. A massive black panther with glowing yellow eyes stalks through the tall grass, its gaze fixed on the house. The predator creeps closer to the wooden structure, its silent movements hidden by the rhythmic drumming of rain. Inside, Luke looks up at the ceiling as rain drips through the gaps, promising to return and fix it. Turning the situation into a game, Luke uses a board and Dorothy a bucket to shield themselves from leaks.
Dorothy beams with laughter, finding a strange sense of fun in their makeshift protection against the storm.
The rain triggers a bittersweet memory for Dorothy, recalling her own childhood spent soaked and alone. A young Dorothy wanders through a modern city, abandoned and drenched as pedestrians pass her by.
Lost in the past, she remembers huddling in alleyways, watching the world move on without her.
The vision ends with the young girl crying out for her mother, her heartbreaking sobs lost in the downpour. Back in the present, the family huddles together under a thin cloth, seeking warmth in their meager shelter. Dorothy resolves to help them properly once the storm clears, her expression filled with newfound determination. Luke looks at her with a mix of surprise and admiration, questioning the scale of her ambitious plans. He quickly agrees to help, noting that with the right tools, he can easily repair their broken home. A warm, confident smile plays on Luke's lips as he holds his wooden shield over his head.
Dorothy lets out a happy cheer, her laughter ringing out despite the miserable weather outside.
Suddenly, Dorothy's expression twists into one of pure terror as a chilling shh sound echoes behind her.
A single, massive yellow eye peers through the wooden slats of the shack, a monstrous presence revealed.
Dorothy's scream pierces the night as the panther lunges, prompting a frantic, desperate shout from Luke. Luke grabs Dorothy, shielding her with a ladle as a sudden impact rings out with a loud "Gah!" Luke stands watch over the shack, his gaze fixed on the storm as the danger lingers.
Panic erupts inside the house as Luke identifies the massive black panther stalking them through the rain.
Dorothy and Luke exchange a tense, breathless look, realizing the gravity of the predator's presence. Dorothy desperately asks if there is a weapon nearby, but only a simple axe sits outside on a stump. Luke brandishes a kitchen ladle, though Dorothy fears it is a far too dangerous choice for defense. Luke remains focused and silent, his expression hardening as he prepares to face the beast. Surprised by his resolve, Dorothy watches Luke carefully as he readies himself for an unconventional confrontation. Dorothy suddenly presents two metal pots, an idea for a noisy defense forming in her mind. The mother urges her children to find anything they can use to appear large and intimidating. Luke's determination burns bright despite the sweat on his brow, his heart set on protecting everyone. A loud clang echoes through the room as the group begins striking their makeshift metal instruments together.
Dorothy gleefully encourages everyone, holding her pot lids high as she leads their noisy counterattack.
Her eyes shine with excitement, finding hope in their loud strategy to scare the predator away.
The mother and children join in, clattering pots and tools to create a cacophony of defensive noise.
Luke watches them with a soft, appreciative look, moved by their bravery in the face of fear. Heavy rain continues to drench the trees and the shack as the standoff intensifies.
Armed with his ladles, Luke steps out into the downpour to directly confront the lurking beast.
The panther growls as the group emerges, their loud clanging creating a wall of sound against the predator. Everyone screams, "Wah!" at the top of their lungs, successfully startling the massive cat with their sheer volume. Startled by the unexpected noise, the Black Panther begins to retreat into the shadows of the forest. Luke seizes the moment, shouting a command to finish their defense as the beast falters. With a defiant leap, Luke strikes out with his ladle to drive the predator far away from the shack. The panther's eyes go wide with shock, completely overwhelmed by the group's coordinated and noisy assault.
The mother keeps her children safe inside as Dorothy and Luke watch the panther vanish into the night.
Once the danger passes, they sit together to reflect on the strange and terrifying encounter they survived. Luke examines the clues, noting that the beast bore marks similar to those found on trained animals. He realizes the panther was trained to attack humans without eating them, a sign of cruel intent. Luke explains that black panthers are exotic species, likely imported and raised by a wealthy noble family. Dorothy listens intently, her expression turning somber as she considers who would unleash such a creature. A portrait of a noble couple sparks a realization, suggesting a deeper conspiracy behind the predator's appearance. Luke remains deep in thought, his face shadowed as he ponders the identity of their hidden enemies. Later, Luke takes a moment of solitude, the steam of a bath rising around his tired frame. Water droplets cling to his hair as he washes away the tension of the night's battle. Now dressed in formal attire, Luke approaches Dorothy, ready to discuss their next move with clarity. Dorothy looks up at him, struck by his noble appearance as they prepare for a serious conversation. Against a backdrop of blooming flowers, they stand together, the weight of their situation heavy between them.
Dorothy questions if the Panther incident was specifically targeting Luke, her concern for his safety growing.
Despite her bright smile, she admits a lingering bad feeling about the events unfolding around them. Luke's expression remains troubled, his eyes reflecting the uncertainty of the dangerous path they now tread. He reaches out, his hand gripping hers firmly as he vows to see this through together. Surrounded by roses, Luke speaks with soft intensity, his gaze fixed on Dorothy's worried face. A sudden realization at a grand mansion brings a shock, shifting the scene to a new location with an The vast sunlit estate stands as a testament to the power of the nobles they are investigating. Inside the elegant room, the peaceful atmosphere of tea time masks the tension of high society secrets. A servant enters with a tray of artisan treats, maintaining the polished facade of the household. A quick clink sounds as the plate of sweets is placed on the table for the guests. The host asks about the purpose of the visit, the conversation flowing over a quiet meal. A brown-haired man smiles warmly, enjoying his tea while discussing the events of the day. The music fades into a nostalgic discussion about growing up and the joy of long-held friendships. The blonde noblewoman gazes into her teacup, a faint and mysterious smile playing on her lips. A quiet clink sounds as she sets the cup down, suggesting they move to the main topic. Sitting across from her guest, the woman directly asks what it is he requires from her today. The brown-haired man smiles knowingly, his gaze fixed on her as he prepares to reveal his intentions.
He deflects her question, asking if she recognizes the melody currently being played by the nearby pianist.
The woman identifies the song, while the guest notes that the piece originally contained quite poignant lyrics. The music tells the tale of a woman who rose in status to marry the man she loved. The woman's expression turns sharp and cold as the guest proposes this theme for the upcoming ball.
She realizes that after the ball, the song will no longer serve as a symbol for her family. Stunned into a momentary silence, the noblewoman stares ahead, processing the weight of the man's bold proposal.
A romantic vision of a dancing couple is suddenly interrupted by a harsh and jarring ripping sound. A hand clenches a piece of torn white fabric, the aggressive action cutting through the nostalgic memory.
The noblewoman stands alone before a towering portrait of the dancing couple, her figure shadowed by the past.
Returning to her conversation, she rests her chin on her hands, her expression clouding with deep concern.
The man gestures grandly, declaring his intention to take on the role of her son at the ball.
He smiles with chilling confidence, asking if this is not the very thing she has always desired. The woman looks away, her face filled with conflict as she listens to the man's manipulative and opportunistic claim. The scene shifts to a grand hallway where several maids are diligently cleaning the carpeted floors and walls. Two maids pause their work to whisper, their faces alight with curiosity about the latest palace gossip. They envision the glamour of the ball, discussing the romantic atmosphere of the couples dancing in the hall. One maid seeks clarification on the true meaning of the tulip ball and its significance to the crown. A dark-haired woman explains the history while her blonde companion listens with wide-eyed surprise and growing interest. A portrait reveals the late empress was a commoner who faced immense hardship despite her high royal status. An orange-haired woman explains that the ball celebrates love that knows no rank or social standing. The maids listen intently, fascinated by the inclusive and romantic traditions established by the late empress years ago. The blonde maid claps her hands in delight, finding the sentiment behind the grand tradition truly beautiful. The orange-haired woman rests her chin on her hand, her gaze turning thoughtful as she considers the implications. The group gasps, "No way!" in unison, shocked by a revelation concerning the ball's true and current purpose. A soft, ethereal vision of a loving couple dancing appears, contrasting with the tense reality of the palace. The maids are left in stunned silence, their expressions reflecting the weight of the secrets they have shared. In his private office, a man with a mustache and goatee carefully reviews a stack of formal documents.
The noblewoman in the dark dress discusses the grand plans for Lowen's upcoming birthday celebration with him.
A quill sits ready in its inkwell as she questions who dared to interrupt such a long-standing tradition. She emphasizes that the event is Lowen's wish and will serve as a grand party in his honor. A sharp snap sounds as the man grips the paper tightly, his frustration mounting during the heated discussion. The woman stands her ground, firmly asserting her belief that Prince Luca will eventually return to the palace. The man remains silent and stern, his unreadable gaze fixed on the woman as she continues her argument. Her expression twists with desperation and anger as she struggles to maintain control over the escalating situation. A heavy thud echoes through the room as a hand slams onto the desk, silencing the noblewoman instantly. The man looks up with a cold and authoritative gaze, signaling that he will hear no further protests. A terrifying, malevolent grin spreads across the woman's face, her eyes glowing with a dark and sinister intent. Outside, a sudden scream of "Kya, Luca!" rings out across the sunny courtyard of the grand estate. Luke carries the blue-haired girl over his shoulder with a grin, ignoring her frantic demands to be released. A flashback shows the girl's initial shock when Luke suggested they head to the Imperial Palace together earlier. A hand stops with a soft tap, marking a moment of quiet reflection or a sudden change in plans. Luke looks at the blue-haired girl with a gentle smile, his playful behavior giving way to genuine affection. Standing together in the garden, Luke offers her a choice, telling her she can stay here if desired. Narration explains that Prince Luca was always alone, favored by the Emperor but losing his smile long ago. A portrait shows young Lowen playing the role of a good brother only when it suited his needs. A hand brushes across the strings of a harp, the melody waking Lowen to another day of duty. Luke wakes up in a panic as a sharp blade is suddenly thrust toward his face in the dark. He let out a terrified "ooh-ah" as a shadowy figure leans over him, demanding that Prince Luca wake up. Later, Luke comforts Dorothy, suggesting they find an alternative way to thwart the Empress's looming schemes. Luke blushes and looks away hesitantly, struggling to find the right words to express his complicated feelings. Their conversation is interrupted by an energetic messenger delivering an official summons from the Imperial Palace. A close-up reveals the formal document, its elegant script and seal carrying the weight of royal authority. Dorothy looks contemplative while Luke stares at the letter, both processed by the shock of the sudden summons. A soft fwa sounds as Luke takes hold of Dorothy's waist, his sudden touch surprising her. Against a vibrant floral backdrop, Luke declares his intention to head out immediately to prepare for the ball. To her shock, Luke sweeps Dorothy into a bridal carry, rushing off toward their next destination. At an upscale boutique, an eccentric blonde tailor gleefully prepares Dorothy for a grand high society transformation. Dorothy is overwhelmed by the bustling maids, while Luke watches with an amused and supportive smile. Dorothy expresses concern over the lack of funds for a dress, but Luke remains charmingly undeterred. The tailor is moved to tears by a romantic vision of a dancing couple, inspired by the pair. Luke beams with genuine pride and joy as he watches Dorothy's stunning transformation take place before him. Dorothy models a bright yellow dress adorned with ribbons, looking like a cheerful spring flower in full bloom. She then tries on an elegant purple gown, its intricate lace and floral patterns radiating a noble grace. Dorothy admires her reflection while the Madame and Luke celebrate the success of the exquisite new wardrobe. She beams with pure delight, her face lighting up as she finally sees herself in the beautiful attire. Luke and the Madame share a moment of shared satisfaction, thrilled by how perfectly the dresses suit her. A quiet paton sounds as Luke watches her, the mood shifting toward a more serious and reflective tone. Luke's expression turns somber as he considers the consequences of his long absence from the Imperial Palace. A silhouette reveals Luke's past escape from the palace, a desperate runaway from a life of duty. Dorothy gazes at him with concern, sensing the heavy burden Luke carries regarding his royal identity. Luke offers a gentle, reassuring smile, trying to mask his internal conflict as they prepare to move forward. He confesses that he no longer desires to dance with any woman other than Dorothy. Surrounded by roses, Luke kneels and kisses Dorothy's hand, making a formal and deeply romantic vow. He looks up with soft, devoted eyes, fully committed to protecting her through the challenges ahead. Dorothy is left stunned and breathless by his intense sincerity, her face flushing a deep, embarrassed pink.
The scene shifts to the palace courtyard, where servants busily decorate the fountain for the upcoming festivities.
A maid carries a bouquet of tulips, looking forward to the romance and glamour of the royal ball. A dark-haired man looks out from the palace window, his back to a single tulip in a vase.
The atmosphere remains still and quiet as the man stands alone, deep in thought about the evening's events. He mentions the tulip ball to Julian, the red-haired man, questioning if he has secured a partner.
Julian looks back with a sharp gaze, suggesting that he was actually considering asking his companion instead.
The dark-haired man smiles chillingly, suggesting they are willing to resort to murder to clear any obstacles. Night falls over the city, the warm glow of windows contrasting with the dark, starlit sky above.
Inside her room, a beautifully wrapped gift and a new dress lie waiting on Dorothy's bed.
Dorothy lets out a tired "ha" as she sits among a mountain of gift boxes from Luke. She regrets her impulsive decision to agree to the ball, realizing she needs to be more careful.
Dorothy reflects on how easily she gets swept up in the romantic mood Luke creates around her.
She recalls Luke's commanding presence, realizing he didn't even give her a chance to refuse his grand gestures.
She feels overwhelmed by the luxury, having ended up surrounded by expensive dresses and accessories she didn't request.
Dorothy lets out a frustrated "wah" while clutching her hair, panicking over the unexpected scale of events.
With a heavy dosa, she flops onto the bed, worried she has grown too close to the story's protagonist.
Dorothy stares blankly into the distance, pondering how her arrival has fundamentally shifted the original narrative path.
She recalls a key scene from the original story, fearing that her interference might lead to a collapse.
Dorothy lies in bed, staring at the ceiling and hoping that no serious trouble arises from these deviations. She looks back at the pile of gifts, unable to help herself from finding the accessories absolutely adorable.
Finally, she breaks into a wide, happy smile, unable to resist the charm of her beautiful new things. Dorothy blushes with a sweet, shy smile while wearing her beautiful new lavender floral dress. In a high-end shopping district, elegantly dressed nobles stroll under sun-drenched awnings and colorful umbrellas. From inside the boutique, Dorothy watches the bustling crowd outside through a large, white-framed window.
A couple laughs joyfully together by the entrance, the man leaning in as they share a joke. The woman scolds him playfully, pointing a gloved finger as they continue their light-hearted banter.
She looks away with a feigned huff, a slight blush touching her cheeks as she teases him.
The light-haired man laughs heartily, clutching his chest at her adorable reaction.
Dorothy watches them with a soft, affectionate gaze, finding their playful relationship truly wholesome and sweet.
Their quiet moment is interrupted as a sudden, loud commotion erupts from the street outside.
Startled by the noise, the group looks toward the door with expressions of genuine surprise and curiosity.
White horses with ornate feathery plumes announce the arrival of a high-ranking imperial carriage. Dorothy is stunned as a grand white carriage stops right in front of the boutique's entrance.
A soldier in a long green cloak and military uniform marches inside, his presence commanding silence.
The shop staff bow deeply in respect while Dorothy watches the soldier approach with a bewildered expression.
He announces he has come on behalf of the prince to escort her to the palace immediately. Onlookers in the shop gasp in shock, whispering frantically about Dorothy's mysterious and sudden royal connection.
Dorothy tries to protest that she isn't ready, but the soldier remains firm and politely insistent.
He leads her toward the door as the crowd watches in awe, wondering who she truly is. The madame is left in a state of pure shock, wondering if Dorothy is the prince's partner.
A scandalous thought bubble reveals the group's suspicion that she might be Prince Lowen's secret girlfriend.
Inside the carriage, Dorothy looks around at the luxurious interior, her mind racing with confusion and worry. A voice from the corner startles her, claiming he has been waiting for her arrival this whole time.
Julian, the red-haired man, sits across from her with a cool, confident smile and relaxed posture.
A sudden, loud clatter sounds as Dorothy realizes it isn't Luke and demands to know why Julian is here. She pieces together that Prince Lowen, not Luke, was the one who actually sent this formal escort. Julian gazes at her with an unreadable, calm expression, seemingly enjoying her startled and angry reaction. Dorothy lets out an indignant "yes!" as she continues to process the prince's unexpected and forceful summons. Looking out at the estate, she realizes she has never even seen the face of the prince. Julian explains he decided to come politely despite the prince's order to bring her by force.
Dorothy looks at him with growing concern, sensing the weight of the situation she's been dragged into.
He reveals the prince's true intent is for her to be his partner at the tulip ball. Dorothy rejects the idea with a fierce and angry shout, refusing to be part of his scheme.
Julian reaches out to pat her head, telling her to be a good girl and just cooperate.
A sharp slap sounds as Dorothy forcefully knocks his hand away, her eyes flashing with defiance.
The carriage hits a sudden, violent bump, causing Dorothy to lose her balance and lurch forward. Julian catches her mid-fall, but the momentum pins both of them to the floor in a heap.
They end up in an awkwardly close position, their faces inches apart as the carriage continues to lurch.
Julian looks down at her with wide, stunned eyes, momentarily lost in the unexpected closeness of the moment. Dorothy screams at him to let go, calling the prince a lunatic for attempting such a kidnapping. The atmosphere remains tense as they stare at each other intensely while pinned to the floor.
Julian defends the prince's honor, questioning how she can speak so disrespectfully about the royal family. Dorothy continues her outburst, calling the entire situation insane as she struggles against his hold. They maintain an intense and awkward gaze, the air between them thick with unspoken tension and frustration. A heavy bump sounds as the carriage wheel strikes another rock, causing the entire cabin to shake.
They are slammed back onto the floor with a thud, the impact jarring both of them once again.
Julian lets out a pained groan while Dorothy watches him, noting that the fall looked very painful.
A sharp throb sounds as Julian clutches his forehead in agony, clearly having hit his head.
He helps her up, reminding her that following the prince's orders is her only real option now.
A soft thud sounds as Dorothy sits back down, adjusting her dress with a defeated, moody sigh.
She glares at him with a suspicious and determined expression, refusing to let her guard down completely.
Julian lets out a subtle, amused chuckle as he gazes at Dorothy with an unreadable and playful expression.
A gentle touch sounds as Julian brushes a stray hair from her face, catching Dorothy completely off guard. Julian wears a confident smirk, clearly enjoying the tension while they remain close together inside the carriage.
Julian stares at the weapon with a grim, focused expression, the casual playfulness completely gone from his face.
Dorothy forces a bright, radiant smile, masking her genuine fear while trying to navigate the dangerous royal encounter. A loud rattle sounds as the carriage enters the palace garden, approaching the massive and ornate stone estate. Dorothy is swarmed by maids who insist on shaping her into the specific woman the prince prefers.
A firm shh sounds as the lead maid demands cooperation while Dorothy is prepped in her new gown.
Prince Lowen stands before her, a brown-haired man with golden eyes and a deceptively gentle, welcoming smile. Dorothy sits regally in a rose-patterned gown, a thick lace veil completely hiding her face from view. Julian demands to know when he will meet the Dream Reader, while the prince explains the difficult process. Julian questions if there are other options, prompting the prince to ask if Julian is doubting him.
Julian's eyes narrow with suspicion as he watches the prince, the air thick with unspoken and heavy distrust.
Dorothy sits silently under her veil, reflecting on the fact that she trusts another person much more. A sudden swish sounds as the prince leans down, his presence towering over the seated and veiled Dorothy. A soft rustle sounds as the prince's hand reaches out to lift the lace, seeking a better look. Dorothy identifies the man as Prince Lowen, her mind racing as they stand in his lavish private chambers. She gazes at him through the intricate lace patterns, trying to remain calm under his intense royal scrutiny. Prince Lowen offers a charming, warm smile, appearing perfectly welcoming in his private and gold-trimmed quarters. Dorothy seethes with internal rage, calling the prince a pompous royal jerk for his insulting remarks about her. A soft chew sounds as the prince kisses Dorothy through her veil, while Julian watches with somber eyes.
Julian's eyes reflect deep frustration as he watches the scene, his expression hardening under the mounting palace tension.
Dorothy remains still, her face obscured by lace as she processes the prince's bold and unexpected physical gesture. A sudden, frantic gasp sounds as Dorothy screams at the prince, outraged by his bizarre and offensive behavior. A rhythmic scrub sounds as she wipes her face, disgusted by the encounter and the prince's odd words. Julian explains the social benefits of being the prince's partner, pacing the room with confident, measured steps. A subtle whoosh sounds as Julian directs her toward the window, sticking to their planned and secret escape. Dorothy looks back with a dazed expression, feeling completely overwhelmed by the evening's chaotic turn of events. Julian offers a reassuring smile, standing by the open window and waiting for her to make her move. A quiet rustle sounds as Dorothy adjusts her jewelry, her fingers trembling slightly from the night's high intensity. She puts on a bright, radiant smile, determined to maintain her composure despite the mounting royal pressure. Narrator text explains that a recent commotion at the palace was kept strictly under wraps by the staff. Night falls over the grand palace grounds, the blue-tinted shadows hiding the deep secrets of the royal family. Luke stands in the courtyard, his black hair with red tips looking striking under the cold blue moonlight. Surrounded by an elite squad of soldiers, the prince is quietly led back into his palace confinement. Luke stares ahead with a somber, resigned expression as the soldiers surround him, ending his brief midnight escape. The blonde empress scolds the black-haired Prince Luca, demanding if he understands the trouble taken to hide his absence. She wonders aloud who the prince takes after to be so selfish as she turns away in disgust. Glaring over her shoulder, the empress maintains her cold demeanor while Prince Luca stands nearby with his back turned. Prince Luca walks toward the tall windows, his posture rigid and distant as he ignores the empress's departing presence. A soft click sounds as Luca turns his head, his expression grim and weary after the intense royal confrontation. A heavy clang echoes as a massive golden chain and padlock are wrapped around the ornate palace doors. The empress walks away from the newly locked chamber, her elaborate gown rustling as she leaves Luca in isolation. Fuming with rage, the empress wonders why Luca chose to return now, just before the critical imperial ball. She looks at a portrait of the emperor, determined to hide Luca's return to ensure Lowen becomes crown prince. Time passes in a quiet sequence of panels as the sunlight shifts across the grand, arched palace windows. Prince Luca lies exhausted on his bed, his arm draped over his face as a rhythmic click sounds nearby. A maid enters the room carrying a breakfast tray, accompanied by a soldier standing guard by the door. A sharp clack sounds as the tray is set down, revealing a hearty meal of toast, eggs, and bacon. A sudden crash startles Luca, causing him to snap his eyes open as he senses someone approaching his bed. With a quick whoosh, Luca sits up abruptly, his messy hair falling over his face as he scans the room. He thinks bitterly that the palace officials haven't even informed his father of his return, keeping him hidden away. Determined not to miss the ball, Luca gets out of bed, his eyes reflecting a sharp and calculating resolve. A soft shh sounds as Luca reaches for his sword, suspecting that yet another assassin has been sent. Prince Luca lunges forward with a fierce slash, demanding the hidden intruders show themselves as his blade cuts the air. His sword is stopped as he finds himself face to face with Dorothy, who is dressed in an elegant rose-patterned gown. Dorothy stumbles back with a startled "ah," her dress fluttering as she nearly loses her balance from his attack. Luca catches her, whispering her name in total shock as he realizes the supposed assassin is actually Dorothy. They remain in an intense and close embrace, the air thick with surprise and the heat of their reunion. Dorothy looks up at him with a radiant and playful smile, her blue hair adorned with delicate pearl chains. A soft clap sounds as Dorothy asks why he is here, while Luca looks away with a flustered blush. Julian sits casually on the balcony railing, mockingly questioning if the brothers share the same taste in women. A sharp shink sounds as Luca points his sword at Julian's throat while protectively holding Dorothy close. Julian raises his hands in mock surrender, his expression full of amusement despite the blade held against his neck. Dorothy laughs cheerfully at the brothers' bickering, while Luca continues to glare at Julian with deep suspicion and anger. They trade intense looks, Julian's calm smirk contrasting sharply with Luca's frustrated and defensive scowl as the tension rises. Dorothy steps between them with an exasperated ugh, stretching her arms out to stop the two brothers from fighting. From the balcony, Julian notes with a wince that Dorothy's grip strength is surprisingly formidable for her delicate appearance. The group gathers inside, Dorothy eating calmly while Luca remains brooding, and Julian stands watch over the tense meeting. Luca clutches his head in frustration as Julian asks Dorothy if she told Luca his brother is truly insane. Munching on a snack, Dorothy notes to herself that the unfolding chaos perfectly matches the events of the original story. Julian urgently warns that the sun is rising, insisting they must hurry before the palace staff begins to arrive. Julian rubs his forehead, looking exhausted by the complicated family drama and the looming deadline of the upcoming ball. Turning toward Julian, Luca emphasizes his conviction that Prince Lowen is a completely unhinged and dangerous individual. Memories reveal Lowen's cruelty, including selling servants into slavery and permanently injuring a knight's hand during a sparring match. Luca stares ahead with a haunted expression, recalling how the Black Panther was released specifically on Prince Lowen's orders. An ominous notification reveals that every dangerous event was carefully orchestrated to target and eliminate Prince Luca. Dorothy and Julian listen in grim silence, processing the terrifying reality of Lowen's relentless and murderous schemes. Luca's single visible eye reflects a cold, burning intensity as he focuses on his plan for the coming day. Sitting tall and regally, Prince Luca prepares himself to face his brother and reclaim his rightful place in the palace. A small twitch of a smile appears on Julian's face as he vows to protect Dorothy at any cost. Dorothy breaks the heavy mood with a joyful shout, her eyes sparkling as she encourages them with boundless energy. With a sudden oof, Dorothy throws her arms around Luca in a tight hug, catching him completely off guard. She squeezes him affectionately, her face glowing with happiness as she celebrates being reunited with her dear friend. The scene shifts to the Grand Imperial Palace, bathed in morning light, as a few days pass in preparation. Vibrant tulips bloom across the garden, signaling the long-awaited arrival of the prestigious and fateful Tulip Ball. An ornate gold frame announces the arrival of the highly anticipated Tulip Ball, setting a grand stage. Guests arrive in elegant carriages, the ladies' vibrant gowns adding a splash of color to the palace courtyard. A close-up showcases the intricate ruffles and delicate floral patterns of a young woman's sunny yellow ball gown. Vibrant tulips bloom in the garden as the sun reflects off the majestic windows of the imperial palace. A happy couple walks arm in arm through the corridors, their faces lit with joy as the festivities begin. The grand ballroom is a sight of opulence, featuring marble pillars, a central fountain, and finely dressed nobles. From a high vantage point, a sea of elegant guests moves gracefully across the red-carpeted ballroom floor. A soft wow sounds as the massive, sparkling crystal chandeliers leave the mesmerized onlookers completely breathless. A brown-haired man looks on in wide-eyed amazement while his auburn-haired companion maintains her cool composure. The woman calmly explains that such grandeur will soon be their new normal, advising him to stay steady. The man gazes around the room with a stunned expression, still processing the sheer scale of the event. Conversations hum across the tiled floor as guests express their long-held curiosity about the night's special announcements. An orange-haired girl claps her hands in delight while chatting excitedly with her friend about the ballroom's beauty. The Emperor and Empress stand regally at the head of the stairs, overseeing the start of the ball. The Emperor looks on with a slight, knowing smile as the blonde Empress maintains her cold, watchful gaze. A group of young nobles looks up in anticipation, their faces reflecting a mix of awe and nervous excitement. The royal couple prepares to address their guests, the Emperor's red eyes glinting with a sense of authority. The Empress takes a glass of red wine from a waiter, her expression calm as the ceremony begins. A celebratory toast is shared as 2 glasses of red wine meet with a soft, ringing chime.
The Emperor and Empress sip their wine simultaneously, signaling the official start of the prestigious imperial gathering.
Guests throughout the hall follow suit, raising their glasses as the atmosphere turns festive and lively. Nobility from across the empire join the toast, the room filled with the clinking of fine crystal glasses. A loud cheer, wah, erupts from the crowd as guests raise their glasses toward the royal family's dais. A bright golden note sounds as a trumpet blast calls for silence and announces the herald's arrival. A red-haired man in formal attire lowers his trumpet, standing tall as the herald for the proceedings. A second attendant holds up a formal announcement scroll, looking slightly nervous beside his confident red-haired companion. The scroll reveals a dense decree, marking a significant and historic moment in the Empire's long lineage. The red-haired man offers a subtle, confident smirk, hinting at a hidden agenda or a surprise to come. A flash of pink floral fabric and delicate lace signals a dramatic entrance that captures everyone's immediate attention. Prince Luca and Dorothy make a striking entrance, she in a stunning rose-adorned gown and he looking regally handsome. They stand together as a stunning pair, Dorothy looking up at Luca with a gentle and radiant smile.
A stunned wah sounds as a blonde girl gasps in shock at the couple's breathtaking and unexpected appearance.
Whispers spread through the ballroom like wildfire as guests turn to see the newcomers making their way forward. The Emperor's eyes widen in genuine shock, his jaw dropping as he stares at the pair approaching him. The Empress's gaze fixates on Dorothy's dress, her mind reeling as she recognizes the significance of the attire.
Dorothy radiates elegance in her rose-covered gown, her blue hair styled perfectly with a delicate floral headpiece.
A shocking thought regarding the origin of the girl's dress hangs heavily in the air as onlookers stare. In a dreamlike memory, a woman in a similar rose-patterned gown laughs joyfully while reaching out her hand. The Empress looks visibly distressed, a bead of sweat on her face as she glances toward the silent Emperor. Clenching her fists, the Empress urgently demands an attendant tell the prince to hurry and enter with his partner. The attendant rushes off with a quick clatter while the royal couple stands tensely at the top of the stairs. The Emperor raises his hands, signaling for the musicians to begin the first waltz of the evening. A small orchestra of musicians playing violin and cello begins a sweeping melodic tune for the noble guests. Luca leads Dorothy onto the dance floor, her massive gown swirling beautifully as they move in perfect rhythm. They glide across the ornate tiles, the absolute center of attention as they move with effortless, graceful harmony. Dorothy and Luca exchange a tender, intimate look while they dance, lost in the magic of the moment. A guest in a purple dress gazes at them with admiration, whispering about how lovely the couple looks. From above, the full splendor of Dorothy's gown is revealed as it fans out during a graceful spin. A rhythmic clap sounds as the crowd begins to applaud the couple, moved by their beautiful performance. The Emperor watches the scene with a contemplative expression, his gaze fixed on the dancers as the music swells. Prince Luca and Dorothy stand together at the center of the ballroom, drawing every eye with their radiant and unexpected presence. High above, the Emperor and Empress watch the dancing couple with cold and calculating expressions from their royal balcony. The Empress grits her teeth in a sudden flash of anger, her composure failing as the situation slips from her control. Hiking up her elaborate gown, the Empress frantically rushes down the red-carpeted stairs toward the quiet corridors of the palace. She calls out desperately for Prince Lowen, her voice echoing through the empty halls as she searches for her unstable son. Rounding a corner, the Empress finds a shadowed figure standing at the end of the corridor, his posture dark and menacing. Turning to face her, Prince Lowen looks disheveled and wild-eyed as the Empress demands an explanation for his unsettling presence. Her mouth hangs open in absolute horror as she takes in the true state of her son's worsening and violent madness. Chilling visions reveal Lowen's cruelty as he stands over a bloodied body, claiming he was forced to punish such incompetence. Lowen's face is contorted with a terrifying and predatory rage, his bared teeth stained with fresh, crimson blood. He screams into the air, his voice full of a bitter hatred as he accuses his brother of stealing his partner. The darkness of his jealousy deepens with every word, his unstable mind consumed by the thought of his brother's betrayal. Overwhelmed by the horror, the Empress leans heavily against the palace wall, her spirit broken by the sight of her son. A close-up of a stepping foot emphasizes the heavy and tense silence that follows his chilling and violent outburst. Her hands shake uncontrollably as she realizes that the son she tried to protect has become a true monster.
Lowen's orange eye glows with a haunted intensity, focusing on his mother with a cold and piercing gaze. He bites his lip until it bleeds, the sharp pain and metallic taste reflecting his deep, internal, and simmering agony. Looking down at him, the Empress feels a crushing sense of despair as she confronts the wreckage of her family. She pleads with him, her voice trembling as she expresses her fear of leaving him alone in such a state. A dark and ominous speech bubble commands her to go quickly, signaling Lowen's complete withdrawal into his own twisted world. Lowen's wide, haunted eyes follow her, his face reflecting a terrifying blend of shock, pain, and a building murderous intent. Clutching her gown with trembling fingers, the Empress struggles to maintain her composure, despite the cold sweat on her face. A lone figure stands in the blue-tinted hallway, the atmosphere heavy with the weight of the dark events just witnessed. Escapes as he remains trapped in his own nightmare, his single glowing eye filled with a cold fire. On the floor, a brown-haired man coughs up blood, struggling for life following a brutal and unexpected physical confrontation.
Lowen stands tall and menacing with his sword drawn, completely indifferent to the desperate and dying man's pleas for help.
A violent splash of crimson covers the scene, representing the darkness and bloodshed that looms over the royal family's future. The scene shifts back to the vibrant ballroom, where guests dance in blissful ignorance of the tragedy unfolding within the palace. The Empress looks pale and sickly as she returns to the festivities, her mind still reeling from the horrific encounter.
A noble couple approaches with a formal greeting, their polite words clashing harshly with the Empress's internal and mounting panic.
Straining to keep up appearances, the Empress explains that Prince Lowen is feeling unwell and will not attend the ball.
She repeats the lie to herself, her eyes narrowing as she attempts to bury the memory of her son's madness. The gray-haired noble looks on with a suspicious and knowing expression, sensing the heavy tension hidden behind the Empress's words. Reaching for a drink, a hand grasps a glass of wine with an anxious and sudden movement as the pressure builds.
The Empress drinks deeply, the red wine a small comfort against the chilling and persistent visions of her son's violence.
Her expression remains grim and watchful, her eyes reflecting a cold determination to see her plans through at any cost. From the balcony, she watches as the Emperor stands with Luca and Dorothy, her heart filled with a bitter resentment.
Luca and Dorothy share a joyful and heartfelt moment, their smiles radiant as they celebrate their hard-won and public reunion. The Empress grits her teeth in a low growl of fury, unable to tolerate the sight of their obvious happiness.
Looking serious and commanding, the Emperor oversees the crowd, his red eyes focused on the historic announcement he must make. Standing on the red carpet, the royal group receives a deep and formal bow from the gray-haired noble in attendance. Luca offers a slight, confident smile, looking regally handsome as he prepares to take his place as the rightful heir.
Surrounded by a dreamlike floral background, Dorothy and Luca share an intimate look, their bond unbreakable despite the palace's chaos.
They stand proudly before the Emperor, the two of them united and ready to face the future of the Empire together. Raising his gloved hand for silence, the Emperor commands the attention of every noble present for the final decree.
He loudly declares that his son will succeed him, becoming the true son of the Empire in a historic proclamation. A sea of noble guests looks on from below, their faces a mix of awe and shock at the unexpected news.
The Empress and a male attendant watch from above, the weight of the Emperor's words marking the end of her reign. Closing her eyes, she looks down in quiet defeat, her hopes for her eldest son finally and completely shattered. Prince Luca and Dorothy stand together as a stunning pair, their shared look of resolve signaling a new era for them. Prince Luca looks down with a soft, pensive expression, his mind clearly occupied by the weight of the moment.
Dorothy's eyes widen in realization as she mentally connects the unfolding events to a scene from a familiar story.
A storybook illustration depicts Luke pledging his life to the heroine while kissing her hand before a stained glass window. In the present, Luca gazes at Dorothy with devotion, mirroring the romantic vow from the legendary tale they share. A noble asks the Empress if the special tulip announcement has occurred, highlighting the primary focus of the ball. The Empress holds a shimmering blue crystalline tulip, its magical light reflecting off her elegant attire and jewelry. Floating text declares the flower should be given to the woman who shines the brightest among the noble guests. Standing regally, the Empress smiles as she prepares to present the coveted crystalline tulip to its chosen recipient. Dorothy glows with pure joy as she clutches the radiant blue flower, celebrated as the star of the evening. The ballroom erupts in cheers and a rhythmic clap as the guests celebrate Dorothy's triumphant and public recognition. A noble couple applauds enthusiastically, their faces filled with delight as they witness Dorothy's unexpected and well-deserved success. A surprised tisk escapes Dorothy as a hand gently touches her shoulder, pulling her away from her public celebration. Luca leans in dangerously close to Dorothy, his sudden and intense proximity catching her completely off guard in the ballroom. Offering a warm and confident smile, Luca captures her gaze, his charm radiating through the crowded and festive hall. The guests continue to celebrate with laughter and clap, oblivious to the intimate moment shared between the royal pair. Dorothy stands alone on the dark balcony, letting out a heavy whew as she seeks a quiet moment's reprieve. Clutching her forehead in distress, Dorothy struggles to process the overwhelming events and the shifting reality of her situation. Her eyes widen in shock as she realizes the true identity of the heroine mentioned in the Empire's history. A silhouette of a girl running through the town appears in a memory, emphasizing her role as the story's protagonist. A sudden thump of shock hits Dorothy as she recognizes that the heroine is defined by her sky blue hair. Panicking on the balcony, Dorothy frantically questions how she could have forgotten such a crucial detail until this very moment. Luca approaches her from behind, calling her name with concern as he finds her looking visibly shaken and distressed. Placing a gentle hand on her forehead, Luca checks for a fever, asking if she is feeling unwell after the ball. Dorothy blushes furiously as Luca leans over her, his intense worry and physical proximity making her heart race wildly. They share a silent, romantic moment under the moonlight, the air thick with unspoken emotions and building tension. Soft pink roses frame the scene with a rhythmic thump-thump, emphasizing the blossoming romantic connection between the two. High above them, a man with maroon hair watches from a tree branch, his expression cold and observant. Letting out a weary ha, the maroon-haired man calls out to Dorothy, breaking the intimate silence of the balcony. Both Luca and Dorothy jump in shock, their romantic bubble burst by the unexpected presence of the lurking stranger. A comical boing sounds as the pair leaps apart, their faces flushing with embarrassment at being caught so close. The maroon-haired man apologizes for the intrusion, his casual demeanor contrasting with the tension he just disrupted.
Dorothy laughs nervously and thanks him for his help, while Luca looks away with a disgruntled and annoyed expression.
Luca lets out an irritated tsk, clearly unhappy that his private time with Dorothy was so rudely interrupted. Stepping forward, the maroon-haired man explains he is actually there specifically to speak with the young lady alone. Dorothy suddenly remembers her promise to interpret the man's dream as a reward for his mysterious and helpful actions. Looking into a mirror, Dorothy reflects on the heroine's fate and wonders if she has truly taken her place. A realization strikes her with a sharp gasp, her eyes reflecting the terrifying possibility that she is now the heroine. The maroon-haired man watches her silently, his patient smile masking his true intentions as he waits for her response. Dorothy enters a state of comedic mental chaos, her thoughts swirling as she tries to decide her next move. The maroon-haired man formally asks if they can speak privately, adding more pressure to Dorothy's already frantic mind. Lucas' expression hardens as he remains silent, his red eyes glowing with a cold and fiercely protective intensity. Despite his misgivings, Luca asks Dorothy if she will be all right alone before reluctantly agreeing to leave the balcony. Luca offers a final, serious look, his silent disapproval of the situation clearly etched on his handsome face. His gaze sharpens into a predatory glare, revealing a dangerous side that would do anything to protect what is his. The maroon-haired man looks visibly unsettled by Luca's sudden and chilling display of territorial and violent royal blood. Luca walks away with a cold resolve, acknowledging that his internal darkness is a trait inherited from his royal lineage. A final thought warns that Luca possesses the eyes of a man who would kill anyone for his convictions.
Luca strides down the balcony with a steady clack-clack, leaving Dorothy alone with the mysterious and expectant maroon-haired man.
Dorothy watches him go with a mix of worry and confusion, sensing the dangerous shift in Luca's recent behavior.
The maroon-haired man insists that their deal is finalized, cutting off any further questions as they begin their private talk. The maroon-haired man warns Dorothy against deceiving the Lycaon Guild with a sharp, calculating gaze. Dorothy pauses, her pink eyes reflecting a mix of uncertainty and consideration as she begins to reply.
Spinning a silver pen, the maroon-haired man brings up his deal and the girl from his dreams. He holds the pen steady, questioning if Dorothy has truly forgotten the details they previously discussed. A close-up reveals Dorothy's silence as she processes his words, her mouth held in a firm, tight line. In a comical burst, Chibi Dorothy scolds the man for being too calculating despite his high status.
Looking slightly overwhelmed, the man tries to clarify his meaning while Dorothy scolds him for his role as guildmaster. Dorothy breaks into a bright laugh and encourages him to continue, lifting the heavy tension on the balcony.
The maroon-haired man watches her, noting internally how easily he gets swept up in her magnetic presence.
Dorothy offers a radiant and genuine smile, her joy illuminating the dark night as she faces him.
He describes a recurring dream that begins with a painful headache and reveals an entirely unknown world.
In the sepia memory, a young girl named Anna cries out for her mother while huddled on the floor. A sepia-toned boy watches the girl, while a woman's soft voice calls her a good girl in the distance. Anna weeps as her mother's voice promises to always watch over her, leaving the girl visibly heartbroken.
The young boy watches a hand fall limp as a heavy thump signals a tragic end in the memory. Now older, the sepia-toned boy stands with a vacant expression, haunted by the memories he has witnessed.
A girl wearing a baseball cap moves past him with a quick zip, catching his attention in the street.
She carries heavy cardboard boxes, telling a customer to wait just a bit longer as she works. An older man shouts at the girl for her delivery time, though she points out it is still early. The girl walks away with a lollipop in her mouth, leaving the boy to wonder about her identity.
A cheerful yay rings out as the boy continues to observe the girl with growing curiosity and intrigue.
The memory ends with a vision of the girl cheering happily, her face glowing with pure, unbridled excitement. Back in the present, the maroon-haired man rests his chin on his hand, lost in deep thought. His eyes widen in total shock as he finally realizes a hidden truth during their conversation. Tears begin to stream down Dorothy's face with a soft drip, her composure finally breaking under the weight. Panicked by her sudden outburst, the maroon-haired man frantically asks why she has started crying so intensely. Dorothy leans against him for support, sobbing as he wonders if his shared dream caused her such pain. Looking out over the balcony, Dorothy reveals the truth. She was indeed the girl from his vivid dreams. An illustration of a black chess knight falling represents the dramatic shift in their shared destiny and secrets. Glittering gold coins and noble artifacts highlight the man's pursuit of fortune and higher status in society. He recalls being born a vagabond in the back alleys before rising to become a top guildmaster. Glowing silhouettes illustrate his special ability to dream of others' memories and use them to his advantage. Sitting in his office, he explains how he uncovered other secrets every 10 days to build his power. A smug grin spreads across his face as he remembers confronting a man about a murdered heir. The noble reacts with terror as guards rush into the room, caught in the guildmaster's web. Standing confidently among drawn swords, he reminds his target that he isn't the only one with secrets. A butterfly caught in a spider's web symbolizes the inescapable traps he set with his sharp, calculating mind. Clad in a fur-lined cloak and holding a knife, he recalls his past ambition to control the world. His golden eyes gleam with a dangerous curiosity as he began to investigate the forbidden royal family secrets. From behind a tree, the scene shifts back to the quiet balcony where the two continue their talk. The maroon-haired man looks away, his expression solemn as he reflects on his past and current situation. Holding his head in distress, he admits that he eventually lost his one and only talent for dreaming. He stares at Dorothy,
connecting her to Anna from his dreams and questioning her true identity once more. Grasping his forehead, the man struggles to process the reality of Dorothy being the girl from his past. Dorothy wipes a tear from her eye, her expression softening as she regains her composure after the revelation. Looking completely baffled, the man asks what is happening, realizing she saw memories he had personally forgotten. Dorothy looks up at him with wide pink eyes, her face reflecting a deep and quiet understanding. They share an intense, silent look as the man hums thoughtfully, trying to piece everything together. A close-up of his green eye reveals the focused determination and shock lingering in his piercing gaze. Standing together on the balcony, Dorothy offers her thanks while the man looks on with a pensive expression. Dorothy looks down thoughtfully, her hand resting against her chest as she processes her complex internal feelings. Julian lets out a weary sigh, his eyes closed as he reflects on the heavy atmosphere of the night. Dorothy recalls that Julian's current wish perfectly aligns with the original storyline of the romance novel she knows. A glowing thought bubble highlights her concern about finding a real way to fix the complicated situation at hand. An ornate, locked blue book appears, serving as a visual metaphor for the typical solutions found in romance novels. A grand decorative frame reveals that the key to resolving their conflict is the concept of skinship, or physical affection. Memories of warm embraces and gentle touches illustrate the romantic path expected for a traditional hero and heroine. Julian offers a charming, genuine smile while holding a hand, embodying the ideal image of a noble romantic lead. A comical chibi Dorothy panics, clutching her head and shouting in disbelief at the thought of initiating physical contact. She immediately rejects the idea, looking stiff and resistant while Julian stands calmly behind her on the quiet balcony. Dorothy worries that a poorly executed lie might only end up making things worse for their already precarious relationship. Julian looks completely baffled, a bead of sweat on his face as he reacts to Dorothy's sudden internal conflict. A shadowed silhouette of a young girl in a yellow dress stands before a beautifully framed floral background. In a humorous burst, chibi Dorothy tries to save face by claiming that the same feelings apply to her. Turning away with a stubborn huff, Dorothy acts aloof while Julian watches her with a look of growing confusion. Dorothy begins to explain her plan, pointing a finger as she tries to regain control of the balcony conversation. A sudden, sharp clap sounds as she brings her hands together, bracing herself for a bold and decisive action. Shocking Julian, Dorothy reaches out and grabs his face with both hands, catching him completely off guard. Dorothy leans in close, her expression serious as she focuses on the outcome of this unexpected physical contact. Julian's face is comically squished between her hands as he looks on with a bewildered and frozen expression. From a high angle, the two share an awkward and intimate moment under the moonlight on the marble balcony. After the sudden contact, they both pull apart, looking flustered and avoiding eye contact in a state of embarrassment. Dorothy reflects on the novel's logic, hoping that this level of bold contact will be enough to change things. Julian covers his mouth in total shock, his face flushing as he tries to process the sudden physical intimacy. Regaining her composure, Dorothy waves dismissively and offers her help for the future before turning to leave the balcony. Julian remains standing alone, touching his cheek where her hands just were, as he gazes after her with intrigue. The scene shifts back to the grand ball, where elegantly dressed nobles mingle in the opulent, brightly lit hall. A grand announcement draws the attention of the entire crowd toward the stairs where a distinguished lady is arriving. A handsome man with messy dark hair and striking red eyes smiles charmingly as he makes a grand entrance. He approaches Dorothy, mentioning his wait for her as she laughs brightly and greets him with genuine warmth. A close-up reveals Lucas' subtle smirk as Dorothy reflects internally on the identity of Julian from the Lycaon Guild. Luca leads Dorothy through the ballroom, his expression calm and proprietary while she walks gracefully by his side. The story pauses as the scene transitions, hinting at the shifting alliances and new secrets waiting to be revealed. Soft white flowers bloom against the dark night sky, signaling a transition into a nostalgic and sepia-toned memory. A young boy with dark hair approaches a beautiful woman in a garden, holding out a handmade flower crown. Placing the crown on his head, the woman encourages young Luke to grow into a sweet and lovely prince. Luke looks up at her with large, innocent eyes, recalling his father's stern belief that men should carry swords.
The woman gently takes his hand and offers a tulip, suggesting that he is capable of holding both. A close-up shows her soft hands guiding his, teaching him the delicate balance between strength and compassion. She explains that he should carry a sword to protect his family and flowers for the one he loves. Overjoyed by her words, the young boy offers the flower back to her, calling her mother in the garden.
She accepts the gift with a tender smile, predicting that he will one day give flowers to his true love.
A wide shot of the grand estate captures the peaceful, sunlit moment between the mother and her young son.
The memory shifts to a darker tone as a blonde woman in a black dress carries a child away.
Holding the boy, the blonde woman scoffs at the pretty and simplistic ideals being taught to him by others.
She expresses her bitterness, questioning why a peasant girl is the empress while she remains a mere concubine.
Standing before a royal portrait, she reminds the boy Rome that he is the son of an esteemed house. She instills in him the harsh lesson that noble blood and status are the only things that truly matter. The memory of the smiling empress fades as the blonde woman's cold words begin to poison the boy's innocence. As she carries him through the hall, a man calls out to her, breaking the heavy silence of the palace. A man with dark hair and a serious expression confirms that all preparations for their secret plan are complete. A close-up of a blonde woman's mouth reveals a subtle, knowing smirk as their mysterious scheme begins to unfold. Holding young Rome close, the blonde woman reassures him that they will soon reclaim everything belonging to them. Walking away, she declares her intent to seize the crown and the throne, reclaiming their lost royal status.
With a sudden, sharp gasp, the maroon-haired man's eye snaps open as he jolts awake from a vision.
High in a tree, Julian sits up in a daze, looking disoriented after experiencing an incredibly intense dream. Julian reflects on successfully dreaming about the royal family's secrets, confirming his unique talent for dreaming has returned. Gazing out over the distant city, he whispers Dorothy's name, feeling a deeper connection to the girl he saw.
Dorothy looks up with wide pink eyes, appearing stunned as the scene shifts back to their recent balcony conversation.
Julian warns Dorothy that the Lycaoan guildmaster is a dangerous man, urging her to prioritize her own safety.
Touching her chin thoughtfully, Dorothy hesitates, finding it difficult to reconcile Julian's warning with her own personal experience. Julian leans in close, his golden eyes searching hers, as Dorothy looks back at him with a startled expression.
A close-up of Dorothy's eye reflects her internal conflict, as she reflects that he didn't seem bad at all.
Julian suddenly grabs her arm firmly, his expression intense as he tries to emphasize the gravity of his warning.
Feeling the unexpected warmth of his hand through her sleeve, Dorothy's heart races as she processes their physical contact.
They share an incredibly intimate moment, staring into each other's eyes as the tension between them continues to build.
Dorothy's gaze remains fixed on him, her blushing face and wide eyes revealing her growing attraction and internal confusion.
Dorothy laughs and tells Julian he's holding her arm too tightly while they continue to discuss magical secrets together.
A soft suru sounds as Julian's fingers slide down her arm, lingering for a moment longer during their conversation. Julian turns away with a deep blush, touching his face awkwardly while Dorothy watches him with a playful look. They walk together through a lush garden filled with blooming roses and vibrant butterflies, enjoying a rare, peaceful moment. Standing before the Grand Palace, Dorothy offers her thanks for his hospitality and for letting her stay last night. Sitting inside a carriage, Dorothy smiles brightly at Julian, who remains outside, looking uncharacteristically silent and deeply contemplative.
Leaning out of the carriage window, Dorothy playfully asks Luke if he's really not going to see her off.
Startled by a sudden, loud sound, Julian reacts with shock, his eyes widening as the moment takes a turn. Julian frantically leans into the carriage, shouting a confused, "How?" as Dorothy looks on with a bewildered expression. With a determined look, Julian promises to summon the most powerful mage in the entire empire to help her. Against a soft pink background, a hand reaches out slowly, capturing a moment of quiet focus and romantic tension. Dorothy abruptly pushes Julian away with both hands, her face flushed with embarrassment as she regains her personal space. The carriage rolls away toward the palace fountain while Julian promises to contact her soon with news about the mage.
Standing alone, Julian touches his cheek and blushes intensely, his golden eyes reflecting the impact of their sudden intimacy.
Inside the moving carriage, Dorothy looks away with a soft blush, her expression revealing she is equally affected by him.
A radiant, sparkling smile from Julian captures his change in mood, radiating a newfound sense of hope and joy.
The scene shifts to a building named Wonderland, where a large crowd of excited patrons gathers in the street.
Inside the bustling shop, a lively Gaia chatter fills the air as customers browse the colorful merchandise.
Clapping her hands with a bright smile, Dorothy explains to a customer that they only sell items as sets.
Dorothy looks toward the door with an enthusiastic expression, her blue hair styled with yellow bows for shop work.
A man wearing a brown paper bag over his head stands with a formidable presence, marked by a dawn.
In a humorous chibi scene, Dorothy runs toward the bag-headed man, excitedly presenting a small dress for his approval. The two stand back-to-back in chibi form, Dorothy holding a lollipop while the mysterious bag-headed man carries a sack.
A minimalist panel with the text, "Until that day," provides a brief narrative pause against a misty, ethereal backdrop. A thunderous shout about shutting the shop down rings out, disrupting the peaceful environment of the busy store. Dorothy confronts a nervous royal messenger, while the mysterious man in the paper bag stands silently behind her.
Brandishing a rolling pin and a knife, Dorothy angrily defends her shop, her face twisted in a look of fury.
The messenger panics, trying to explain that he is merely relaying a formal message from the Empress to them.
Dorothy continues her outburst, questioning her lack of dignity while Julian stands behind her, looking increasingly stressed and sweaty.
A close-up of the paper bag reveals nothing but a silent and enigmatic ... adding to the scene's tension.
With a quick "Gasa," the bag is removed to reveal Julian, now wearing a flowery yellow apron and blushing. Julian stands tall in his floral apron, looking majestic as the messenger notes that his walk oozes royal grace.
Chibi onlookers react with shock and amusement as the messenger continues to gush over Julian's unexpected and graceful appearance.
Julian stands awkwardly in his flowery apron, blushing as Dorothy continues her animated and protective explanation.
Clearing his throat with a nervous cajon, the messenger tries to regain his professional composure amidst the chaos. A stylized portrait of the royal family underscores the messenger's warning about reporting the incident to the emperor. Julian remains silent and contemplative while Dorothy aggressively defends her shop, leaving the messenger visibly flustered and overwhelmed. Looking down with a somber expression, Julian reflects on the weight of the royal family's demands and his current state.
Feeling utterly defeated, Dorothy slumps her shoulders in despair, while the messenger watches her with a mixture of pity and concern.
Walking away together, Dorothy leans wearily against Julian's shoulder, seeking comfort as they process the messenger's troubling news.
The two walk through the sunlit town square at sunset, their silhouettes casting long shadows against the cobblestone path.
Suddenly, Julian strips off his shirt to reveal his impressive physique, striking a bold pose that catches everyone off guard. Preparing to cook, Julian expertly ties a simple apron around his waist, focusing on the task of providing a meal.
With a sharp schwa sizzle, Julian skillfully flips a steak in a flaming pan, demonstrating his unexpected culinary prowess. A beautifully plated steak dinner with vibrant vegetables and garnishes is presented, radiating a warm and inviting glow.
Julian's absolutely bold decision to serve dinner shirtless certainly adds an unexpected spice to their cozy evening meal.
Dorothy laughs with pure delight, exclaiming how delicious the food is, while Julian watches her with genuine affection.
After finishing their meal, Dorothy feels emotionally recharged, leaving only empty glasses and crumbs on the table.
They enjoy a quiet tea time together.
A close-up captures Dorothy's radiant laughter, her eyes closed in a moment of true happiness and relief.
Julian offers a charming, soft smile as he holds a delicate teacup, enjoying the peaceful atmosphere of their shared moment.
Dorothy points out that Julian has plenty of outfits, teasingly dismissing his concern about getting his royal clothes dirty.
Flexing his muscles, Julian adjusts his arm with a smirk, fully aware of his own strength and striking appearance.
Taking a thoughtful bite of cake, Dorothy reflects on how some behaviors have become a comforting habit for them. Gazing at the building under the warm evening sky, Dorothy concludes that the current situation is actually not bad.
The scene shifts to a forest where a series of quick ta-ta footsteps signal a hunt in progress.
A sharp goosa sounds as an arrow pierces a deer's back, bringing the chase to a sudden and violent end.
Blood stains the forest floor as the hunter approaches the fallen animal, confirming the success of his lethal shot. A dark-haired knight stares in frozen terror at the hunter, his face pale with intense and overwhelming dread. Standing over his prey, Julian holds his bow with cold indifference, exuding a dangerous and predatory royal aura.
Sweating and trembling, the knight is completely paralyzed by fear as he watches Julian's every cold, calculated move.
Looming over the terrified knight, Julian mocks his failure, his words sharp and filled with arrogant royal condescension. A close-up of Julian's cold smile accompanies his mention of the crown prince, heightening the scene's tension. Reacting with a sudden biku, the knight's eyes widen in shock as Julian's words strike a terrifying chord.
Discussing his preference for archery over swords, Julian's hand tightens around his bow with a deliberate, slow movement.
With a chilling smile, Julian aims his arrow directly at the head of the knight, cowering before him. Falling to the ground, the knight begs for mercy while Julian scorns his disgraceful lack of courage and composure.
Julian commands the terrified knight to drive out the next deer, promising to finish it in 5 shots.
From a distance, the knight reflects on rumors of Julian's changed personality, fearing for his very life. Hounds snarl and snap as they drive a white deer through the underbrush, continuing the relentless and bloody hunt. A close-up of Julian's red eyes reveals his intense focus as he prepares to take his next lethal shot. Julian aims his arrow at the white deer's head, his movements fluid and precise as he locks on. Adjusting his aim with a subtle "su," Julian shifts his target toward the deer's rear with sadistic intent. A powerful gust of wind suddenly whips through the trees, startling Julian and disrupting his careful and cruel aim. An eye snaps open as a mysterious voice asks if it has been a while, breaking Julian's concentration. The knight on the ground gasps in disbelief, his eyes widening as a new figure unexpectedly enters the scene. A tall man with long silver hair stands beside the white deer, emanating a sense of divine and ancient authority. Julian looks on with a grim and serious expression, clearly recognizing the powerful and mysterious man before him. The silver-haired man smiles knowingly, dismissing Julian's presence while focusing his attention on the knight below. The grand and ancient mage tower rises majestically against the sunset, a place of immense knowledge and secret power. Elaborate magical diagrams and ancient texts are scattered across a desk, detailing the study of rare magical abilities.
Silhouettes illustrate the historical alliance where mages provided their sensitive powers to the royal family in exchange for support.
Known as Syrian, the silver-haired mage stands in full regalia, his elegant appearance matching his reputation as a scholar.
Narrative text recounts the rise of Syrian, a silver-haired mage prodigy who became Tower Master at 15.
Under Syrian's brilliance, magic flourishes throughout the empire, seen in the sprawling, majestic capital city below. A luxurious tea service features tiers of fresh sandwiches and pastries, setting a refined tone for discussion. In a grand library, a brown-haired man and a blonde woman discuss how difficult Syrian is to manage. Sipping her tea, the blonde woman notes with concern that Syrian has been out of contact for months.
A wide view of the library highlights the tension as they wonder what orders the emperor gave the mage.
A flashback to a royal ball reveals the emperor's plan to connect Syrian with various noble young ladies.
The brown-haired man laughs, joking that he would side with the maids to avoid such tedious social obligations.
Unamused by his levity, the blonde woman tells him to focus on finding his own partner as well. Massive waves crash against buildings, illustrating the natural disasters Syrian's wide-range magic successfully prevents for the empire.
Happy citizens walk through a stable, peaceful city, a direct result of the security provided by Syrian's power.
Radiating intense power, Syrian channels a golden magical crest, his long silver hair flowing in the divine energy.
Despite the dramatic advancement of magic, the blonde woman reflects somberly that fundamental problems remain completely unchanged.
Massaging her temple in frustration, the woman expresses her growing worry regarding the stability of the current situation.
A close-up of her troubled face reveals that even the Emperor is becoming increasingly anxious about these developments. She concludes that the Emperor's meddling in Sarian's personal life stems from a place of deep, genuine concern. In the library below, the brown-haired man listens intently, while another room reveals a meeting beginning. In a sunlit study, Julian asks if it is possible to solve his problem using a legendary mage. Julian declares his intent to become the prince's most capable and dangerous right hand, foregoing his own dreams. Closing his book with a snap, the brown-haired man acknowledges that Julian's proposal is a very tempting offer. Standing by the window, the brown-haired man promises to find a way to bring Sirian to Julian's side. A new condition is set. Julian must first prove his true abilities before the deal can move forward. A firm handshake seals their clandestine alliance, marked by a sharp "guh" sound of physical and symbolic agreement. The brown-haired man offers a mysterious, knowing smile, seemingly satisfied with the path Julian has chosen to take. A companion in the background reacts with a cold sweat of shock as he watches Julian's intense transformation. Releasing a long, weary sigh, the brown-haired man prepares for the difficult task of finding the mage. In the forest, Sirian smiles coldly, refusing to waste his time on a prince who lacks basic archery skills. A series of quick ta-ta footsteps echo through the woods as the brown-haired man moves toward the clearing. Standing in the misty forest, the brown-haired man is greeted by a sudden whistling gust of wind. Sirian walks beside the white deer, admitting he only appeared because he knew the prince expected his arrival. Hidden behind a tree, the brown-haired man watches Sirian's departure, his eyes fixed on the silver-haired mage's back. Sirian raises a slender finger to his lips, offering a charming but secretive smile that demands total silence. The brown-haired man responds with a smirk, seemingly unfazed by the mage's playful yet commanding and dangerous aura. A detailed close-up highlights the intricate jewels and gold chains adorning Sirian's open robes as he turns. With a sharp snap of his fingers, the brown-haired man signals the start of their next move. A glowing blue gem or pill rests in the center of an open palm, radiating a mysterious light. Sirian stands tall with his arms crossed, his golden eyes reflecting the warm, fading light of the forest sunset. Dorothy looks up with a stuffed, cute expression while eating pancakes, momentarily detached from the forest's heavy tension. Held carefully between his fingers, the blue magical object shines brightly against the dimming light of the woods. The brown-haired man stares at his hand in the golden hour light, reflecting on the weight of his secret. A framed portrait depicts a brown-haired man and a blue-haired lady together, hinting at deep, long-standing personal connections. Confronting Sirian in the clearing, the brown-haired man bluntly states he is under no obligation to share information. Sirian offers a sharp, beautiful smile, his gaze fixed intensely on the man standing defiantly before him. A close-up of the brown-haired man's smirk reveals his confidence as he continues to challenge the powerful mage. Leaning in close, Sirian asks with a playful "Sue" movement if he truly knows the woman that well. The brown-haired man maintains his smug expression, meeting the silver-haired mage's gaze with a look of quiet superiority. Standing close together in the forest, their contrasting auras create a moment of intense and focused narrative tension. Julian watches them from the shadows, realizing that the runaway prince mentioned was actually himself all along.
Sirian breaks into a light ha-ha laugh, finding genuine amusement in the complex web of secrets they share.
Standing in the sunset, Julian looks toward the pair, his mind reeling as he processes the mage's sudden revelation. Julian looks on as the brown-haired man offers a respectful bow with a sudden, polite pecco sound. Watching Sirian's long hair brush past him with a soft "Sue," Julian remains guarded and deeply analytical. Sirian glances back over his shoulder, his golden eyes glowing with a mixture of amusement and hidden intent. Reflecting on the problem solved with Dorothy's help, Julian considers his next move with a serious and focused expression. Julian worries that further questions might make Rome suspicious, potentially revealing his reliance on another's mysterious power. Looking at his open palm, the brown-haired man seems to weigh the consequences of the deal just struck. Julian anticipates finally hearing the details of a dream that has long been kept a closely guarded secret. Sirian adjusts his long silver hair, his elegant posture radiating a calm and untouchable aura of magical authority. A sudden, brilliant light causes Julian to flinch in shock as powerful magical energy begins to surge around him. Magical trails of golden light flow away, prompting Julian to shout out in protest at being left behind. The scene shifts to a vast, sun-drenched library where researchers and mages study amidst towers of ancient books. Amidst floating motes of light, a robed figure works at a desk, surrounded by the quiet hum of magic. Julian notes the privacy of the room with a subtle sss sound, realizing no one can leak their conversation. Sweating nervously, Julian realizes they are within the Mage Tower, a place restricted even to royalty without proper permission. A detailed view shows the intricate gold chains and jewels of Syrian's robes, emphasizing his high status and wealth. The brown-haired man closes his eyes with a satisfied smirk, appearing content with the progress of their secret plan. In the Grand Tower, Syrian and the brown-haired man discuss their alliance while Julian speaks in a cut-in panel. Syrian taps his chin thoughtfully, his expression unreadable as he considers the brown-haired man's worth to the prince. Offering a polite yet sharp smile, Syrian continues the high-stakes conversation with an air of effortless grace and poise. The brown-haired man gestures forward with an open hand, his green eyes sparkling with ambition and calculated confidence. Syrian stands across from the brown-haired man, his golden eyes observing the other's bold proposal with cool interest. A close-up of the brown-haired man's determined eye accompanies Syrian's acknowledgement of his value to the prince's cause. Standing tall in his ornate robes, Syrian looms over the brown-haired man, their height difference emphasizing the mage's power. Syrian's profile reveals a slight, knowing smile as he continues to play his part in this complex political game. With a sharp swoo movement, the brown-haired man clenches his fist, officially accepting the mage's dangerous and tempting deal. Holding a glowing blue orb, the man reflects on the danger he might be bringing to its mysterious creator. Looking away in contemplation, the brown-haired man seems burdened by the weight of the secrets he is now protecting. Clenching his sleeve with a sharp "guh" sound, the brown-haired man's face shows a rare moment of genuine anxiety. Syrian massages his temple as if tired, maintaining his composure while navigating the intricate details of their conversation. Leaning in close, Syrian asks if the person mentioned is the true protagonist of the brown-haired man's mysterious dream. Startled and flustered, the brown-haired man stammers a denial with a frantic gesture of his hand. Without warning, Syrian unleashes a violent blast of purple magical energy, striking the brown-haired man directly in the face. The brown-haired man collapses onto the ornate carpet with a heavy dosa sound, while Syrian watches him coldly. Syrian gazes down at his fallen associate as a magical montage of distant memories begins to flicker nearby. Dorothy sprawls lazily across a floral-patterned couch, surrounded by scattered letters and books in her cozy, sunlit room. Bored and pensive, Dorothy chews on her pen while reflecting on her current situation and the stack of papers. An eye snaps open with a sharp Kira glimmer as Dorothy suddenly senses an unusual and powerful presence nearby. From behind the floral curtains, a series of heavy, dragging zoo sounds echo, filling the room with sudden tension. Reacting with a sudden biku, Dorothy's face pales in sheer terror as the unsettling sounds continue outside the window. A massive, dark silhouette with sprawling wings looms outside the glass, casting an ominous and threatening shadow over Dorothy. Screaming in panic, Dorothy's eyes widen as she realizes the powerful entity outside is far from a normal visitor. Radiating divine light, Syrian appears in his full regalia, his robes flowing as white feathers drift through the air. Syrian offers a brilliant and beautiful smile, his golden eyes shining with an intensity that borders on the supernatural. The powerful mage stands beside Dorothy's table, his presence completely overwhelming the once peaceful room with magical energy. Sweating and frozen with dread, Dorothy wonders if the man before her is the legendary and dangerous Tower Master. Syrian watches Dorothy from outside the glass with a quiet Karoo turn, his calm expression contrasting with her panic. Desperate to ignore the intruder, Dorothy focuses on her papers, repeating that she saw nothing and won't turn around. A flashback depicts Julian and the brown-haired man, as Dorothy reflects on avoiding novel characters until this moment. A close-up of Syrian's thoughtful expression highlights the silence as he waits for Dorothy to acknowledge his arrival. With a violent pan, the window shatters completely as Syrian bursts in, prompting a terrified "Kya!" scream from Dorothy. Zephyrian mocks Dorothy's lack of awe, noting that others usually kneel before his angelic presence when he appears. Cecilian, the Tower Master, teases a frozen Dorothy for pretending not to notice his striking, beautiful silver hair. The silver-haired mage offers a knowing smile, his golden eyes sparkling with a mischievous and captivating intensity. Reflecting on the novel, Dorothy recalls how this broken hero's overpowered magic eventually derailed the entire story's logic. Leaning in close with a soft, Syrian enjoys watching the flustered and sweating girl squirm under his gaze. To hide her nerves, Dorothy forces a bright, cheerful laugh while the elegant mage observes her with quiet curiosity. Covering her mouth, Dorothy playfully asks if the great Tower Master has heard any scandalous rumors about her recently. Syrian reaches out, his fingers gently lifting Dorothy's chin as he demands her absolute and undivided attention. Panic strikes Dorothy as she realizes the mage has somehow deduced her secret origin from the modern world. While Dorothy serves tea, Syrian explains how his predecessors failed to bridge the gap between their world and others. The mage boasts of his superiority, claiming he is a far more exceptional being than any Tower Master before him. Sipping his tea, Syrian reveals he sensed dimensional distortions and finally tracked the otherworldly presence to Dorothy. A reflection in the glowing tea highlights Dorothy's somber, thoughtful expression as she processes the mage's startling revelation.
Dorothy maintains a sunny facade, her wide smile hiding the growing tension of being discovered by such a powerful man.
Dismissing her alarm, Syrian casually drinks his tea while insisting he is merely a prodigy, far superior to others. Dorothy's bubbly confidence falters for a moment as she questions the logic behind the mage's cryptic and sudden explanation. Pointing at the shattered glass, Dorothy demands the superior mage fix her window before she grants him any respect.
Syrian tops his chin thoughtfully, considering the girl's bold and unexpected challenge with an intrigued sound.
A brilliant flash of light surrounds Dorothy as the mage begins a sudden and silent magical restoration of the room. Shards of glass begin to float and glow, caught in a swirling vortex of the mage's refined and effortless power. Dorothy watches in awe as the once broken room is engulfed in a gentle, shimmering wave of restorative magical energy. The swirling light begins to coalesce, mending the damaged furniture and the window with intricate, high-level sorcery. In the blink of an eye, the window is restored to its pristine state, leaving no trace of the earlier chaos. Amazed by the display, Dorothy claps enthusiastically while a laughing Syrian basks in her genuine and loud admiration. Dorothy chatters excitedly about the magic, her earlier fear replaced by an eager curiosity that amuses the silver-haired mage. Accepting her praise with a smug grin, Syrian concedes that her reaction is fair enough for a wizard of his caliber. As they settle in, Dorothy asks if his arrival was purely based on curiosity regarding her rare, otherworldly existence. Syrian remains relaxed on the sofa, confirming that his interest in her goes far beyond simple scholarly curiosity. The mage's profile reveals a soft, almost genuine smile as he continues to engage with the unique blue-haired girl. Dorothy looks up thoughtfully, questioning if certain mysterious elements are truly exclusive to this magical world they inhabit. Breaking the tension, a cheerful advertisement panel pops up as Dorothy showcases her handmade, love-filled candy shop creations. A chibi-style Dorothy points to a giant lollipop, humorously promoting her store's commitment to honest ingredient labeling. Returning to the serious conversation, Syrian's eyes narrow slightly as he promises that things will certainly change from now on. Dorothy leans in close, her eyes sparkling with excitement as she encourages the mage to share more secret information. Syrian watches her with a mixture of amusement and hidden intent, clearly satisfied by her renewed and intense interest. Flushed with excitement, Dorothy's face glows with joy as she prepares to hear the powerful mage's next revelation. A loud, "Tell me right now," echoes from the hilltop mansion, signaling a sharp shift in the afternoon's tension. Under the cover of night, the grand blue-roofed academy stands silent, hiding the political turmoil brewing within its walls. A heavy dosa thud rings out as thick, leather-bound books fall in a messy heap on the library floor. Laughing bitterly, the brown-haired man leans against the bookshelves, overwhelmed by the mounting pressure of his secret role. Haunted by visions of Julian and Syrian, the man feels like a mere puppet being toyed with by powerful entities. Releasing a weary sigh, the man covers his eyes while a blonde woman watches him from the doorway's shadows. The brown-haired man's eyes glow with a fierce orange light as he vows to create unforgettable, potentially dark memories. Sunlight bathes the vast courtyard of the Royal Academy, a peaceful setting for the high-stakes political games being played. A quill moves with a steady, rhythmic scratch across the parchment as the man begins drafting a new letter. Seated at his ornate desk, the brown-haired man focuses intently on his writing, temporarily ignoring the world around him. A thin, satisfied smile plays on the man's lips as his pen completes another line of his mysterious plan. The blonde woman observes him from the doorway, her posture reflecting a deep and quiet concern for his mental state. Turning his head, the man listens as the blonde woman worries aloud about him not eating a proper meal. Clenching her hand to her chest, the blonde woman looks on with a pained expression, mourning the man's obvious distress. Inside the bedroom, the blonde woman offers her help to the seated brown-haired man. The man turns with a soft smile, acknowledging the blonde woman's presence in the quiet room. Standing together, the man expresses his deep appreciation for her loyalty and constant support. He pulls her into a warm hug, finding a rare moment of peace in her embrace. The blonde woman smiles gently, visibly touched by his sincere words as they hold each other. A nostalgic memory reveals the blonde woman cradling a dark-haired baby during a tender moment. The infant sleeps soundly, bathed in a soft, ethereal light that emphasizes the peaceful scene. His eyes glowing with an intense orange light, the man maintains a serious expression during the embrace. He whispers a determined vow into her ear, promising to reclaim what he believes is his. The blonde woman closes her eyes, sharing in the weight of his resolve as they stand close. The sun-drenched academy buildings stand in the distance, marking a shift to the grand royal grounds. Seated in the carriage, Luca and Dorothy prepare for their arrival at the prestigious Royal Academy. Dorothy laughs cheerfully, her light blue hair swaying as she engages the dark-haired boy in conversation. From above, the white carriage and its horses travel steadily through the Academy's lush green pathways. A close-up shows a hand holding a long red ribbon, which begins to glow with magical energy. Dorothy announces her success as she finishes tying the red ribbon around Luca's wrist. Her hands work quickly, securing the red fabric that now binds the two together. Dorothy presents a small, glowing red bead, captivating Luca with the sudden display of magic. With a cute, puffed-out expression, Dorothy performs a quick paku motion as the magic takes hold. A sudden froid breeze rustles her floral dress as a golden light surrounds the blue-haired girl. Luca's eyes widen in sheer shock as he watches Dorothy begin to lift off the carriage seat. Defying gravity, Dorothy floats high into the air, leaving the confines of the moving carriage behind. She laughs with absolute joy, fully embracing the thrill of her magical flight above the Academy grounds. Luca calls out in confusion while the red ribbon stretches taut, following Dorothy into the sky. Reaching out toward the flying girl, Luca frantically shouts Dorothy's name as she drifts further away. Their hands remain connected by the long red ribbon, serving as a magical tether between them. Dorothy soars like a kite high above the grounds, while Luca desperately maintains his grip on the ribbon. The coachman glances back with a bewildered expression, completely stunned by the sight of the flying passenger. From a wide view, the girl floats gracefully above the carriage as Luca holds the red line. Spreading her arms wide, Dorothy beams with pure happiness while gliding through the clear blue air. She looks back at Luca with a playful, triumphant smile, enjoying the success of her magical experiment. Luca watches her with a soft, affectionate expression, his worry replaced by genuine admiration for her joy. Dorothy descends gently back into the carriage, her yellow dress billowing as she lands in Luca's lap. Radiant and smiling, Dorothy looks up at the boy, her eyes sparkling with excitement after her flight. Luca holds her securely as she sits on his lap, the two sharing a playful, intimate moment together. The dark-haired boy breaks into a bright, heartwarming laugh, clearly delighted by Dorothy's adventurous spirit. Dorothy explains that while her magic is successful, it requires further research before they can use it. The coachman blushes while listening to Dorothy praise Luca's dependability from the back of the carriage. Her face lit with a bright smile, Dorothy looks forward with anticipation toward the academy buildings. Luca leans in close to Dorothy, their proximity creating a brief, silent moment of romantic tension. He gazes at her with a gentle, focused smile, his affection for the blue-haired girl clearly visible. Noticing their arrival, Dorothy points toward the academy and excitedly notes that they have finally reached it. With a quick ta-ta-ta run, she leads the way, her long hair trailing as she explores. The grand white stone architecture of the academy stands before them, representing the start of a new chapter. Dorothy marvels at the overwhelming atmosphere of the academy, finding it more impressive than any book description. She waves excitedly, her face glowing with curiosity as she takes in the vast, regal surroundings. Luca follows closely behind, placing his hands on her shoulders in a protective and guiding gesture. Leaning down, Luca whispers a private, heartfelt comment into her ear as they walk together. Dorothy blushes and smiles, expressing how much her meeting him has given meaning to her life. Looking toward their future, Dorothy voices her unwavering belief that Luca will one day be a great emperor. Dorothy and the brown-haired man climb the long staircase together, entering the heart of the Royal Academy.